Everything begins in the middle of an intense battle, and the soldiers shout to take down Road, calling the kid a monster for using forbidden arts. However, our MC appears flying on his shadow dragon, and farming aura, he introduces himself as the monster everyone has been talking about. Next, he lands right in front of the enemy army, and thinks to himself that everyone calls him a monster, but he knows they call him that for one simple reason. He is the only necromancer in the world. After that, a clash between an army of the undead and an army of humans was about to begin. The skeleton army charges in with full force. On the other side, the humans were out for blood, wishing for the MC's demise. The mages of the human army begin to chant a fire spell, declaring there is no room in this world for such forbidden magic. If you want the next part, make sure to like and comment. A fiery meteor shower begins to rain down straight toward Road. However, the MC didn't show a single trace of fear and decides to test a mysterious, forbidden spell against all of them. Out of nowhere, our MC wakes up in a completely different place, with someone calling him Young Master Road. He was utterly confused and sees his maid, Leah, calling out to him with deep concern. Leah lets him know that it's already time for his morning meal. Upon touching the mirror, Road realizes something strange is going on. He looks into the mirror and discovers that he has returned 20 years into the past. He remembers that in his previous life at 32 years old, he was reincarnated into another world. In that place, he became the only necromancer and the most powerful mage, commanding an unbeatable army of the undead. Road recalls that they tried to wipe him out, and that he ended up returning to the past after casting a mysterious spell. Seeing him lost in thought, Leah urges him to hurry up, warning that the Lord will punish him if he is late. Road apologizes to Leah and tells her he is heading over right now. The maid is completely taken aback, wondering if that polite young man who apologized and smiled is really the same cold boy from before. Out in the hallway, Road remembers that he is the youngest son of a bankrupt, noble family, previously known as a spoiled and lazy kid. He recalls how his family was ruined in the past, and how everyone perished while he was powerless to do anything. And even though he lost his powers, he still retains all his memories as a necromancer and promises to change everyone's destiny. After that, Road enters the dining hall and finds his family gathered together. Baron Shiro Morris asks if his son is late again, just to make up excuses and dodge his studies. But the MC apologizes to his father, stating he has no intention whatsoever of skipping his classes and guarantees he won't miss a single lesson, all while thinking it had been years since he last saw his father's stern face. After that, Road wonders how such a strict family went bankrupt in the first place and resolves to uncover the full truth behind it. His older brother, Leo, remarks that he cannot stay laid back if he ever hopes to inherit leadership of the family. But his sister Sif steps in and asks Leo to go easy on him, reminding him that Leo is the eldest. Sif offers some food to Road, who thanks her and thinks about how genuinely sweet she has always been. He remembers that Sif met a terrible end after a political marriage, and he vows he will never let history repeat itself. Right then, someone else enters the room. That woman is Lady Della Morris, and she coldly asks if Road is late once again. Sif tries to shield her brother, lying and claiming it was her fault for tutoring him in magic until late at night. However, Della snaps at Sif to be quiet, telling her to stop making pathetic excuses for her younger brother. Della warns that her patience has run out and gives him a 1-week ultimatum to master magic or face expulsion from the family. Sif falls into despair over the impossibly tight deadline, pointing out that even their prodigy brother took an entire month to achieve that. But the woman refuses to listen, threatening to strip Sif of her family name if she continues to defend the youngest son. Faced with that threat, Sif lowers her head and responds that she would never dare step out of line again. Cutting the argument short, the MC accepts the 1-week challenge, leaving Sif frantic that he would agree to something so unreasonable. Yet he remained calm and confident, asking his mother what his reward will be if he pulls it off. Della states that if he actually meets the terms, she will grant any request he desires. Hearing that, the MC seals the deal on the spot and asks for permission to enter the Tomb of Heroes once he completes the challenge. The MC's father is caught off guard by the boy's bold proposition and promptly agrees to the deal, promising that if he masters magic within 1 week, he will grant him access to the Tomb of Heroes. Della remarks that a good-for-nothing slacker like him would never be worthy of a hero's blessing, telling him he might as well start packing his bags. Once outside, Sif rushes after Road and asks why he didn't just apologize to their mother instead of taking on such an absurd bet. She points out that his constant laziness had already pushed their mother to her limit, and that not even their genius brother Leo managed to master magic in a single week. Sif reveals she saved up a good amount of money over the years to ensure he can live comfortably somewhere in the kingdom even if he gets kicked out. Right after that, she runs off to fetch the funds, while the MC thinks to himself that she could have at least a tiny bit of faith in her own brother's abilities. Still, he admits that if he hadn't reincarnated with all his past mastery, even he wouldn't believe he could outdo Leo. Determined to change his family's dark future, Road knows the time has come to take action, and plans to use the Tomb of Heroes to summon the undead, remembering that a legendary figure lies dormant in that very place. But for now, he decides to settle for the boss monster that lurks in the forest right behind the family estate. Shortly after, the MC tracks down the skeletal remains of a colossal beast known as the Alpha Earth Cleaver. He notices that the mana in his current body is incredibly feeble, realizing just how much he slacked off on his training in the past. He recalls that magical power and classes in this world are split into 8 distinct mana tiers. He remembers that legendary grandmasters made history, but he had once surpassed every single one of those ranks, standing as the absolute strongest. With his present mana pool, he can only summon a single undead servant, but that will be more than enough to silence his mother. Road extends his hand and commands his new minion to awaken from its eternal slumber, demanding that the creature bow before his supreme authority. The ground begins to shatter, and a massive skeletal claw tears through the surface until the beast finally breaks, completely free. Step by step, the massive monster lumbers toward Road, and then drops to its knees before the boy, pledging total loyalty as his new servant. The MC inspects the beast with mana coursing through his eyes. He discovers it is an undead monstrosity endowed with destructive fire and earth abilities. He explains that a necromancer can tap directly into their minion's skills, which will be the ideal way to prove his mastery of magic. Next, he unleashes a blast of magic directly toward a tree, effortlessly blasting a massive hole right through the center of the trunk. The monster praises its master's terrifying strength, while Road thinks to himself that such output isn't too shabby at all. He dismisses the creature back to the shadows, noting that with his scarce mana reserves, sustaining that summon drains nearly all his energy. Even so, the MC knows this level of firepower is already more than enough to shut down his demanding mother. After that, he recalls that the Tomb of Heroes is an ancient, sacred sanctuary where the powers of bygone champions were sealed away. In that holy ground, heroic souls receive promising youths to impart their magical blessings, making entrance to the tomb everyone's ultimate dream. Road remembers that his brother Leo claimed a blessing and became a celebrated war hero, causing their mother to look down on Road even more. However, he reveals that his real goal isn't some run-of-the-mill blessing, but rather claiming the legendary dormant entity slumbering within. Upon arriving at the Royal Academy for Nobles, someone calls out the MC's name at the top of their lungs. Sif is visibly annoyed that he vanished and complains that she explicitly told him to wait for her. She then advises him to keep his cool so as not to provoke their mother any further, promising she will plead his case, but Road tells her not to stress over it, reassuring her that he won't be cast out of the family under any circumstances and would never abandon his beloved sister. Despite his reassuring demeanor, Sif remained somewhat anxious. At that moment, the maid appears and informs them that the young master's magic class is about to commence. Road then asks Leah to lead the way to the lecture hall. Sif stays deeply troubled, thinking that mere confidence won't cut it if even Leo struggled, resolving that she must still plead with their mother. Arriving inside the classroom, the MC finds himself surrounded by several students from high-ranking noble houses. The youngest son of Baron Anta begins mocking him right in front of everyone, sneering that the worthless slacker who always skips class has finally decided to show up. The other peers in the room burst into laughter, thoroughly amused by the public ridicule. However, the instructor shuts down the taunting, announcing that class has started and ordering Road to take his seat at once. The MC recalls that he used to be humiliated daily for lacking mana control, noticing that nothing has really changed. Right after, he bows respectfully before Instructor Regu, greets him politely, and apologizes for arriving late. The instructor is genuinely surprised by our MC's manners, wondering if he truly just apologized, given that such behavior is entirely out of character for him. Road makes his way over to his desk, and the student who had provoked him scoffs in annoyance, thinking the MC is nothing more than a total hypocrite. The instructor kicks off the lesson by explaining that mana is an enigmatic force, and magic is the structured method through which they harness it. He details that once students gain control over their mana, they will branch off into specialized roles such as mages, healers, or assassins. Furthermore, everyone starts out as an apprentice and can climb the ranks all the way up to Saint-Tier mages. A curious female student raises her hand and asks the instructor about the legendary rank of magic. He replies that those mages are living legends and symbols of their nations, representing the pinnacle dream of every magic caster. The master laments that nowadays they only exist in folklore, revealing that the kingdom of Tatis hasn't produced a legendary mage in over 700 years. He warns that everyone must focus on mastering fundamental mana control to secure their standing in society, ideally before reaching 13 years of age. The troublemaker points his finger across the room, loudly noting that there seems to be only one person present who still hasn't mastered basic mana. He glares straight at Road, mocking the fact that the MC has been attending the academy for 3 full years without learning a single thing. Road fires back that it's none of his business, coolly declaring he will master everything within just 1 week. The instigator bursts into uproarious laughter, yelling for the entire class to hear that the useless slacker promised to master magic in 7 days. The other students in the back begin snickering and laughing along. Even the instructor looks disappointed, assuming the boy is still nothing more than an arrogant, lying brat. Road reflects that it would be effortless to unleash his true strength right now, but prefers to wait until the end of the week to avoid causing mass panic. As night falls, Sif heads over to her mother's chambers to talk things out. Della sips her tea in peace and asks what brings her daughter to her room at such a late hour. Sif bows low and pleads from the bottom of her heart for her mother not to banish the youngest son from the family no matter what. Her mother becomes irritated, demanding to know why she keeps defending that hopeless slacker. Della states that even though they are bankrupt, they still uphold their noble pride, reminding her that the other siblings mastered magic at a very tender age. She adds that Road is already 12 years old, and there is no room in their household for a lazy, unproductive failure. She concludes firmly that the matter is settled and there is nothing left to discuss. Sif keeps her head down, completely lost as to how she can save her dear little brother from impending banishment. On the 7th day, everyone gathers out in the courtyard as the instructor announces the official assessment to evaluate their progress. The master gestures toward the castle windows, warning the students that their noble families are watching every move from above. Sif and Della observe from the window, with the mother scoffing that Road will only embarrass himself and tarnish the family name yet again. Sif stares intently down at the courtyard with a heavy heart, wondering if her brother can truly pull off a miracle. Road's rival cheers maliciously, stating he has been counting down the days just to watch the MC fail miserably. He steps forward with immense arrogance, boasting that he will show the slacker what real magic looks like. The boy readies himself, announcing he will specialize as an elemental mage and unleashes a ferocious stream of flames. The fireball streaks through the air directly toward a heavy stone target positioned in the schoolyard. The spell scores a direct hit, engulfing the stone block in a thick haze of smoke and crackling sparks. The rival turns back to taunt Road, claiming he will never reach that level and daring him to put his own results on display. Completely unfazed by the mockery, the MC steps forward to the testing ground with absolute composure. An eerie aura of dark energy begins to emanate from his body in an overwhelming manner. He extends his arm straight toward the stone target to begin channeling his spell. The arrogant kid keeps laughing and jeering, claiming he can already picture the MC breaking down in tears from pure humiliation. A noblewoman standing by the window asks Della if she really intends to kick her son out if he fails today's test. Della replies with utter disdain that a lazy brat like him brings only shame, and that it's better for everyone if he leaves for good. Down in the courtyard, the MC whispers the name of his skeletal minion to trigger his flame technique. A colossal burst of blue fire and massive phantom bones materializes across the courtyard under Road's command. Road decides to channel all his focus and unleash the strike at maximum output to ensure an absolute impact. The instigator stands completely paralyzed in sheer shock upon witnessing that absurd amount of raw magical power. A massive, overwhelming torrent of blue flames is launched violently straight at the stone target. The impact is so devastating that it completely obliterates the massive testing block, reducing it to fine dust. Sif watches the spectacle wide-eyed from the window, cheering ecstatically that her brother actually pulled it off. The rest of the students are left in utter disbelief, murmuring that it's impossible for the slacker to have pulled off something so grand. The veteran instructor Regu stands dumbfounded, thinking that no mere apprentice could possibly generate such immense magical output. The snobbish kid glares at the MC, trembling with rage, unable to process that the worthless failure is far stronger than him. The noble lady beside Della notes with dry irony that the lazy boy doesn't seem so lazy after all. Sif points excitedly out the window, shouting for her mother to see that Road truly overcame the challenge. Down on the field, the MC lets out a faint sigh and calmly dispels the massive manifestation of blue flames. Sif waves joyfully at her brother from the window, while Della observes the entire scene in deep, contemplative silence. Charlie Anta, the resident troublemaker, screams in a rage, demanding to know how that worthless slacker was capable of using fire magic. He points an accusing finger and yells that Rode cheated, arguing that everyone knows the MC always skipped his lessons. The surrounding students begin whispering among themselves, finding it hard to believe Rode cast such a potent spell through sheer skill. Charlie accuses Rode of stealing a magical artifact from his family's vault just to cast the spell and dodge banishment. The MC slowly turns around and coldly inquires what exactly young Master Charlie Anta is insinuating. Charlie grins smugly, noting that magical tools consume immense mana, daring Rode to cast the exact same spell a second time. Completely brushing off his rival, Rode turns to Instructor Regu and asks directly for the Master's assessment of the situation. The instructor sighs and reluctantly admits before everyone that Charlie's suspicion does sound plausible under the present circumstances. The students keep muttering, wondering if the MC really used a stolen relic to cheat his way through the assessment. Up by the window, Sif begins to panic, fearing her brother might have stolen family treasures out of sheer desperation to avoid exile. She tears up in distress, knowing that if the rumor is true, their parents will be even more disappointed in him. Desperate to shield her little brother from such a serious accusation, she realizes she must step in immediately. Sif sprints down to the courtyard and pleads aloud for Instructor Regu not to pin all the blame onto Rode. She attempts to fabricate a cover story to protect her brother, claiming she was the one who handed him the magical artifact. But before she can finish her sentence, the MC firmly grabs her arm to stop her. He gently asks Sif to let him handle the matter on his own and take full control of the entire situation. Rode asks the instructor if casting the exact same high-tier spell again would serve as definitive proof that no artifact was involved. The master confirms that if he can replicate the flame magic back-to-back, his innocence will be proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. The MC calmly agrees and begins unleashing his magical power in an even more overwhelming fashion. The surrounding youths break into a nervous sweat, sensing that the sheer scale of magical pressure is far too monstrous for any novice. With a single command, Rode unleashes another devastating magical blast straight into the remaining stone rubble. Charlie stumbles backward in sheer dread, realizing that the slacker was truly fighting under his own natural power. The MC doesn't stop there, gathering even greater energy in his right hand to make it crystal clear who is running the show. He locks eyes with his arrogant rival with a chilling gaze, leaving his opponent completely frozen in fear. The leftover stone blocks are utterly vaporized under the sheer force of the boy's relentless strikes. Unable to bear the overwhelming pressure, the instigator falls flat on his rear, completely terrified by the display. One of the students asks in a shaky voice whether that imposing figure before them is truly the same failure everyone used to mock. Sif turns to their mother and asks if she will finally drop the idea of casting Rode out of the family once and for all. Della looks away and states that she will tolerate him for the time being, warning that there will be no second chances if he goes back to being lazy. Instructor Regu shouts for the entire courtyard to hear, officially declaring that Rode used no cheating tools whatsoever. The day draws to a close, and a golden sunset begins to settle over the MC's family estate. Later that evening at the manor, Sif and their older brother Leo gather around Rode to congratulate him on his stunning triumph. Rode expresses his gratitude, and Leo chuckles that Sif hasn't stopped talking about the exam for a single second, inviting everyone to eat. The family gathers around the grand dining table once more to enjoy their evening dinner together. The father praises Rode, mentioning that the instructor shared everything that transpired and that he did the Morris name proud. He thanks his father and respectfully asks if the prior promise regarding the Tomb of Heroes still stands firm. The Baron confirms it does, explaining that the tomb opens in 1 month and promising he will secure an entry spot for his son. Della warns that securing an entry pass was extremely costly, demanding that Rode bring back a powerful blessing to make the investment worthwhile. The father adds that the boy will now receive the same privileged treatment as his siblings, urging him to train diligently. Rode offers a respectful bow and expresses his sincere gratitude for his father's formal recognition. Left alone with his thoughts, he reflects that a hero's blessing is utterly worthless to him, intending to use necromancy to establish his own reign within the tomb. He recalls an unmarked grave belonging to a legendary warrior from the primordial era, plotting to make that entity his next prime servant. However, he knows the legendary soul's presence is fading, and his current mana remains too shallow to perform the summoning just yet. He smiles with full confidence, knowing his father's upgraded resources will provide the perfect opportunity to grind and expand his power. After 1 month of intense training, Leah knocks on the bedroom door and informs him that the Lord wishes to see the young master at once. the MC rises with poise, reflecting that over this period, he successfully advanced to the intermediate apprentice mage rank. Rode feels strong enough to summon that ancient soul, while his father instructs Leo to escort Rode to the tomb and teach him the ground's rules. Leo accepts the assignment readily, answering with respect and firmness that he will carry out their father's orders. Soon after, a horse-drawn carriage travels along a dirt path through the dense forest toward the sacred grounds. Inside the carriage, Leo asks Rode if he understands how the ranking system of the tomb's heroic blessings actually works. The MC expresses keen interest in the explanation, replying that he is all ears to learn everything about the subject. Leo explains that blessings are divided into 5 rarity tiers, scaling from standard white all the way to legendary red, granting immense power. Rode inquires about the tier Leo managed to secure, and the brother humbly replies that he only managed to obtain a purple tier blessing. Rode is genuinely surprised, well aware that the purple grade is exceptionally high, which explains why Leo became a celebrated Royal Army hero. Sif praises her brother, noting that claiming any blessing is tough and a purple one is nearly impossible, even if Leo downplays his strength. Sif turns anxiously toward Rode and advises him to give it his absolute best just to secure at least a basic white blessing. Rode chuckles and asks her not to stress him out, secretly thinking she would flip if she found out he doesn't care for blessings at all. They finally arrive at the grand entrance of the Tomb of Heroes, guarded by towering stone statues of armored warriors. The area is shrouded in an eerie, chilling mist, filled with countless ancient gravestones of renowned champions. Leo explains that Rode will have 3 hours inside to prove his worth, while he and Sif wait outside. As Rode heads deeper into the dark tomb, Sif quietly wishes that he manages to claim at least a white blessing. Sif clutches her pendant tightly against her chest, her eyes filled with deep affection and concern for her little brother's safety. The MC walks alone through the foggy graveyard, surrounded by the resting places of the kingdom's legendary figures. With a confident smirk, Rode reflects that the first step of his true scheme is finally underway. He recalls the advice to look for the most ornate tombs, as they belong to high-ranking mages who grant rare blessings. However, the MC walks straight past the extravagant mausoleums without paying them the slightest bit of attention. He acknowledges his brother's advice was reasonable, but knows that the true apex legend lies buried beneath an ordinary, nameless headstone. Rode halts before a worn, weathered stone, respectfully apologizing to the sleeping soul for disturbing its rest. He closes his eyes and begins channeling his potent necromancy to connect with the warrior's burial site. With his eyes glowing with bright blue flames, the MC commands the ancient hero to awaken and bow before him. The spirit's energy begins to violently resist the command, leaving the boy annoyed by the phantom's sheer stubbornness. The MC exerts his supreme authority as the sovereign of the dead, declaring that every soul in this realm belongs under his rule. An imposing figure made of blue flames materializes before him, revealing itself to be a legendary mystic swordsman from ancient times. The MC stares down the massive specter with an unwavering gaze, coldly ordering the legendary entity to take a knee. The legendary warrior brandishes his blade of pure energy and bows with absolute respect, swearing allegiance and greeting his new master. The MC inspects the spectral entity up close and asks if the spirit still remembers its original name. The warrior confesses he has long forgotten his own name, humbly requesting that his master bestow a new title upon him. Rode lets out a satisfied grin at the specter's complete submission, stating that from this moment onward, he will carry a new identity. The boy christens the formidable spirit swordsman with the name Bone Crown. Suddenly, the sound of heavy, deliberate footsteps begins echoing through the stone corridor of the Tomb of Heroes. A party consisting of a bespectacled elder, a blue-haired young lady, and an armored knight walks through the graveyard. The old man mentions that Eleanor, coming from the prestigious Ashblade lineage, is guaranteed to secure at least a purple-tier blessing. The knight advises young Eleanor to focus strictly on the larger tombs to ensure she claims the greatest possible power. The young lady firmly nods along with her companion's instructions and presses forward with her search. Eleanor stops in front of an immense tomb, adorned with an angelic statue, recognizing it as the resting place of the legendary hero Illis. The girl admires the statue in awe, recalling that this hero was a formidable champion who nearly attained sagehood. Determined to earn that great legend's blessing, the young lady rushes toward the sacred monument. But she comes to an abrupt halt upon sensing a violent, terrifying shockwave of blue energy radiating nearby. The knight swiftly steps in front of the young lady, shouting an alert that he senses a dreadful undead presence in the vicinity. A massive cloud of blue spiritual mist begins drifting through the air, casting a heavy, chilling atmosphere across the grounds. They spot the MC in the distance, and Eleanor is surprised to see that it's merely a young kid standing alone in the cemetery. The guard draws his sword and coldly demands to know if that sinister aura originated from the boy. The knight evaluates Road and notices his swordsman's stance, concluding that this boy is definitely no ordinary child. He warns Eleanor to stay on guard, suspecting the boy might be possessed by some vengeful wraith from within the tomb. The warrior channels crackling electricity through his blade to prepare for battle, keeping his eyes locked onto Road. Road merely scoffs beside his mighty new minion, amused that they just mistook him for a vengeful spirit. Next, the MC crouches down and picks up a simple tree branch lying on the ground. Road tests the weight of the stick, remarks that it has decent balance, and orders his minion to handle the skirmish. The knight charges forward at blinding speed, unleashing a powerful lightning-infused strike straight at the boy. Under Road's command, the swordsman's spirit effortlessly parries the knight's heavy thrust, using nothing more than the wooden stick. With a swift and precise counter, Road slips past the guard and lands a clean strike that instantly disarms his opponent. The knight stands entirely frozen in disbelief, utterly overwhelmed by the boy's extraordinary speed. The MC looks down at him coldly from beneath his hood, radiating an intimidating and invincible presence. Eleanor watches the entire exchange in shock, unable to fathom how a seasoned swordsman was dismantled by a kid holding a simple branch. She studies Road, noticing he appears to be around her own age, and wonders how he pulled off such an impossible feat. Annoyed and bewildered, Eleanor points at the boy and demands to know his identity, mentioning her status in the influential Ashblade clan. Eleanor's grandfather immediately steps in and scolds her harshly, ordering her to watch her tone with the young man. The young lady is thoroughly startled by her grandfather's unusually grave and tense reaction toward Road. Road remains completely silent with his face concealed by his hood, observing the noble family's behavior. The elderly man analyzes the MC, thinking that not even he could have subdued that guard so effortlessly, wondering whether the kid got lucky or is a monster. The defeated knight kneels before the elder, pleading for another chance to spar with the boy. However, the noble elder lashes out at his own guard in anger, immediately shutting down his insolence. The knight is sent flying backward by the sheer force of his master's reprimanding blow. The elder pulls back his magical aura after disciplining his subordinate for showing blatant disrespect toward the MC. Road casually watches the scene unfold, with the towering shadow of his minion lingering right behind him. The noble elder threatens the knight with a chilling tone, warning that he will be buried right where he stands if he dares cross the youth again. He reflects in sheer astonishment that Road used 0 mana and triumphed solely through pure blade mastery, a feat worthy of a true grandmaster. As Eleanor continues to wonder about Road's true identity, her grandfather loudly pleads for the young master's understanding. The venerable elder offers a deep, humble bow, apologizing for his subordinate's inexcusable conduct. Road sees right through the old man's scheme, realizing he only held back earlier because he wanted to test the MC's capabilities. Next, the elder barks an order for Knight Leon to step forward immediately and beg the boy for forgiveness. Leon bows deeply before Road, pleading for pardon and admitting he was completely out of line for disrespecting him like that. The knight breaks into a cold sweat, realizing this was the first time someone dismantled him without tricks, relying purely on foundational swordsmanship. The MC merely waves a dismissive hand, replying that everything is fine since he didn't sustain any harm from the brief clash. The elder lavishes praise on Road's flawless technique, asserting that only a Grandmaster-tier swordsman could execute something of that caliber. Eleanor stares at Road's face in sheer disbelief, wondering why her highly respected grandfather is addressing a child as his senior. Road modestly brushes it off as sheer luck, though he is fully aware that Bone Crown was indeed an unrivaled legend in his prime. The elder lets out a hearty laugh, playfully remarking that the young master is remarkably humble for someone with such terrifying power. The gentleman formally introduces himself as Igna Ashblade, the head of their noble house, and presents his granddaughter, Eleanor. Eleanor performs a respectful curtsy and offers a sincere apology to Road for her earlier rudeness. Igna asks which faction he belongs to, secretly thinking that a young prodigy of this caliber must hail from an immensely powerful lineage. Road states he is not affiliated with any faction, recalling that the Ashblade family is a northern powerhouse his own house could never hope to rival. Igna is taken aback to hear he has no ties, immediately plotting ways to recruit the young prodigy over to his family's side. Eleanor steps closer with a warm demeanor, asking Road if he is also visiting the tomb to seek a blessing from the ancient champions. Eleanor blushes at her close proximity to the boy, while Road does his best to offer a polite and composed reply. Suddenly, the elderly Lord Igna begins coughing violently in immense pain, instantly catching everyone's attention. Eleanor and the knight panic, rushing over to support the old man, who appears to be in critical condition. Spotting the dark energy lingering around the man, Road remarks that Lord Ashblade appears to be suffering under the weight of a sinister curse. The guard begs for assistance, revealing they have already consulted countless high-tier healers, yet none could identify the root cause of the ailment. Eleanor weeps as she explains that her grandfather was ambushed by demons decades ago and has been suffering without a cure ever since. The MC deduces that it is a demonic phantom plague, a specialized affliction that very few practitioners know how to treat. Eleanor desperately begs through her tears, asking if, since he recognized the cause, he might also know how to cure her grandfather. The weakened elder tries to maintain his composure, while his granddaughter keeps searching for a way to ease his agony. She makes a desperate vow, guaranteeing that the influential Ashblade clan will grant whatever Road demands if he saves her grandfather. Road reflects that the old man is an admirable veteran, and casually concludes that for a seasoned necromancer, breaking curses is absolute child's play. Road calmly and confidently notes that curing the elder is not a difficult task for him at all. Eleanor and the knight break into wide, hopeful smiles, asking if he is truly being serious. The MC confirms it, but explains that to completely eradicate the curse, he will need to gather a few specialized materials first. Eleanor sheds tears of pure joy, celebrating the fact that her grandfather's long-standing torment might finally come to an end. Leon hands Road a communication device from their noble house, assuring him they will provide whatever ingredients he requires. The guard mentions he will personally come to escort him the moment everything is gathered, leaving their line fully open. Road accepts the device and calmly agrees to the arrangement they set up. Upon exiting the tomb, Road reflects that the trip was highly productive, noting that his strength grew from summoning his minion, even if the spirit is still weakened. But the boy smiles with confidence, knowing that with his necromantic expertise, his servant will undoubtedly return to his absolute prime. Suddenly, Sif comes rushing anxiously toward her brother upon spotting him finally leaving the Tomb of Heroes. She approaches him eagerly, asking with excitement which heroic spirit bestowed a blessing and what rarity rank it was. The boy breaks into a nervous sweat upon realizing he completely forgot to prepare a cover story, as he cannot reveal his true harvest. Right then, Leo steps over with a stern look, remarking that he cannot sense a single trace of blessing energy coming from Road. The older brother confronts him harshly, reminding him of the steep price the family paid just to secure that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Utterly disappointed, Leo laments the outcome, remarking that he genuinely thought the boy had turned a new leaf, only to see he remains the same old disappointment. Road plays along looking sheepish, claiming the ancient heroes simply didn't take a liking to him, though he knows his new minion is infinitely superior to any blessing. Sif gloomily suggests they head back home, while Road silently prays that his mother won't completely lose her temper. As night falls upon the estate, a deafening shout of pure rage echoes directly through the main hall. Della slams her hand against the dining table, furiously barking that, as expected, a hopeless failure will always remain a hopeless failure. Facing the barrage over wasted resources, the MC decides to stay quiet so as not to provoke his mother any further. Della scolds him for putting in zero effort, ordering him to pack up for the Magic Academy in a few days so he won't bring any more shame to the household. She storms off in anger, telling him not to bother coming back unless strictly necessary, claiming he completely ruined her appetite. Road finds the prospect of heading to the academy amusing, knowing he can track down rare materials to enhance his minion there, while his mother mentions a girl named Claire. He recalls Claire, his former fiancée from his past life, who broke off their engagement due to his useless reputation, only to meet a tragic end later on. He remembers she is notoriously difficult to deal with, realizing his mother is essentially sending him off to act as Claire's loyal attendant to preserve family connections. But he decides it doesn't matter since Claire's mother was always kind to him in the past, resolving that this time he will save the girl from her tragic fate. 3 days pass, and the MC arrives at the Seven Cities Magic Academy, situated in the northern territory of the realm. The institution was established by 7 autonomous cities and houses elite students hailing exclusively from prominent noble houses. Road reflects that leaving home was the best outcome, as he can now freely grind his abilities to reclaim his full authority as the sovereign of the dead. Suddenly, a stunning black-haired young lady turns heads as she walks across the courtyard, recognized by everyone as the heiress of House Flora. Several male students gaze at her lovingly, complimenting her striking looks while lamenting that she is already promised to another noble house. The MC quietly takes in the courtyard's atmosphere, waiting for the right moment to make his moves within the institution. Claire's attendant informs her that Road was sent over to accompany her, and the girl spots him from afar, calling him a hopeless slacker. The man reminds her that it is a direct family arrangement and that, despite their ruin, Rhodes' brother holds great promise, leading the young lady to accept the situation reluctantly. Claire decides to keep him around as an errand runner, figuring his presence might keep annoying suitors at bay around the campus. Rhodes observes Claire's condescending demeanor, thinking to himself that she retains the exact same haughtiness as before. In the middle of the courtyard, a familiar voice calls out cheerfully for young Master Rhodes. It turns out to be Eleanor, who approaches him in pleasant surprise, amazed to see that a master swordsman like him is also attending the academy. She excitedly assumes he must be operating on a top-secret mission, such as investigating noble houses secretly allied with demonic forces. The boy discreetly asks her not to call him master out in public, but the young lady nods and immediately calls him master again out of sheer habit. She asks what she should address him as instead, and Rhodes tells her to simply use his name, taking the chance to ask about her grandfather's condition. Eleanor shares that her grandfather is stable and that their family is wrapping up the gathering of the rare materials he requested for the treatment. Claire yells irritably from a distance, demanding to know what the MC is waiting for instead of following behind her. Rhodes calls back that he is on his way and jogs over, leaving Eleanor watching the exchange from afar in total confusion. The blue-haired young lady is thoroughly bewildered, wondering who that cheeky girl is to dare talk to her master with such disrespect. Claire complains about Rhodes' sluggishness, while other students whisper among themselves, intrigued to see the boy walking so close to the Flora heiress. An arrogant student named Anderson Rune struts onto the courtyard, with peers gossiping that he despises anyone who tries to get close to Claire. Anderson flashes a slick, conceited smile upon spotting the heiress of House Flora in the center of the campus courtyard. He walks over with artificial charm, asking why she didn't give him a heads up about her arrival, mentioning he would have loved to escort her personally. Rhodes observes him and recalls that Anderson loved showing off and putting him down in his previous life, noting he remains the exact same arrogant jerk. Annoyed by his presence, Claire points at him and demands that Anderson leave her alone once and for all. Anderson, with an obsessive and sinister gaze, urges her not to be so cold, bringing up his deep feelings for her. Having zero patience for the arrogant boy's advances, she raises her voice at the top of her lungs, ordering him to get lost. She adds that she doesn't care if he is the son of Lord Rune, demanding that he keep a wide distance away from her. Anderson fumes with rage over the public rejection, muttering under his breath that she is an exceptionally ungrateful girl. Losing his temper, he aggressively reaches out with an open hand toward Claire to grab her by force. However, the MC steps in instantly and delivers a sharp slap, knocking Anderson's aggressive hand away from Claire. Rhodes strolls forward beside Claire, leaving a thoroughly enraged and humiliated Anderson standing in their wake. Clutching his aching wrist with burning hatred in his eyes, the troublemaker wonders who that nobody is to dare challenge him. Another student rushes over and whispers into Anderson's ear, revealing Rhodes' true identity to him. He scoffs with derision upon learning the boy is the disgraced failure of House Morris, furious at his audacity to meddle in his personal affairs. Anderson sprints up and forcefully grabs the MC's shoulder from behind in an attempt to intimidate him. The MC turns his head with a bone-chilling glare, releasing an unsettling aura that radiates pure danger. The surrounding students begin to panic, talking about Anderson's ruthless reputation and whispering that the MC is completely finished. Without showing a hint of fear, Rhodes coldly warns his rival to back off, reminding him that Claire already told him to step away. Claire looks at the MC in stunned confusion, wondering if that worthless failure is genuinely putting himself on the line to defend her. Rhodes brushes the aggressor's hand off his shoulder with a swift, effortless motion, instantly shutting down the unwanted physical contact. Anderson trembles with rage, questioning who he thinks he is to ruin his fun, yet feeling an unsettling sense of dread radiating from the boy. Beneath his hood, the MC's glowing blue eyes flash with an intense aura that freezes his opponent dead in his tracks. Anderson's lackeys quickly step in and pull him back, reminding him that the courtyard is packed and House Flora's retainers are keeping a close watch. Anderson reluctantly backs off under the watchful eyes of numerous students, angrily muttering that the boy merely got lucky today. He storms off in a hurry, sweating nervously as he realizes that even though the kid is just an attendant, that icy glare sent a cold shiver down his spine. The rowdy gang of boys clears out of the courtyard under Rhodes' calm and attentive watch. Claire calls him a fool, complaining that even her own family tries to avoid conflict with Lord Rune, claiming he just landed her in serious trouble. Rhodes asks if she didn't want the guy away from her, and she retorts that he should worry about his own skin after getting on Anderson's bad side. Just then, a cheerful blonde girl comes running across the courtyard calling out for Claire. Claire's stern expression vanishes instantly, breaking into a warm smile upon recognizing her best friend, Anna. Anna asks with curiosity who the boy accompanying her is, and Claire coldly introduces him as the youngest son of the fallen House Morris. Anna is shocked to learn he is the infamous good-for-nothing young master, but Claire quickly hushes her to keep her voice down. Claire complains that her mother asked her to keep an eye on him and that he is nothing but trouble, but Anna finds it amusing that she gained an errand boy. Rode observes Anna, remembering that in his past life, she was an opportunistic social climber who helped turn Claire into a political tool, deciding to keep a close eye on her. Inside the classroom, Rode thinks that the standard lectures are useless to him, but recalls that the Academy's secure vault holds a treasure known as the Tear of the Dead. He plots to acquire this power crystal of ancient souls, knowing it will serve to drastically amplify Bone Crown's capabilities. Shortly after, the elderly instructor concludes the theoretical lesson and dismisses the entire class. Anna stretches happily and celebrates the end of the lecture, mentioning she is dying to head somewhere fun. She invites Claire out, but her friend responds with maturity, pointing out they need to focus on their studies to become high-ranking mages. Anna pushes back with flattering charm, arguing that Claire is already talented and that a short break to enjoy themselves won't hurt at all. Anderson suddenly chimes into the conversation, enthusiastically backing Anna's suggestion to head out and celebrate. He invites them to a lavish private banquet at the Crystal Tavern to mark their first day of classes, claiming it would be an absolute honor. Anna pretends to be shocked by the extravagant prices of the venue, but the wealthy heir brushes off the cost while Rode watches the exchange from the background. Anna urges Claire to accept the invitation, praising Anderson's generous offer to foot the entire bill. She takes the opportunity to drop a snide remark, contrasting the generous heir with certain useless freeloaders who contribute nothing. Worn down by her best friend's relentless nagging, Claire reluctantly gives in and agrees to attend the gathering. Anna cheers ecstatically and begins leading her friend toward the exit, while Rode trails quietly behind them. At that moment, Rhode's communication relic glows faintly, and Leon's voice comes through, confirming that all the treatment ingredients are ready. The MC discreetly instructs the knight to meet him directly at the Crystal Tavern later on. The students begin filing out of the academy grounds under the rich golden light of the late afternoon. Spotting the MC following them through the courtyard, Anna turns around in annoyance and asks who gave him permission to tag along. Rode ignores the jab and watches Claire, recalling that in his previous life the girl vanished for several days right after this very gathering. Knowing she returned from that disappearance deeply traumatized and changed, he decides he must shadow her closely to uncover what truly happened. Anna complains angrily that Rode is tuning her out, while Claire tells the boy that classes are over and he no longer needs to follow her around. Anderson steps in with a sly grin and says it's completely fine, insisting that Rode can join them if he desperately wants to come along. In his own mind, Anderson is seething over being humiliated earlier, plotting to teach the MC a painful lesson during the night. Anna is utterly smitten by the heir's display, showering him with exaggerated praise for being such a kind and understanding gentleman. She allows Rode to trail along, but grumbles under her breath, wondering if the boy is secretly obsessed with Claire. The group finally arrives at the upscale Crystal Tavern beneath the crimson skies of dusk. The heavy wooden double doors of the establishment swing open wide as the young nobles step inside. Anderson shouts for everyone in the tavern to enjoy their meals on his tab, prompting patrons to cheer for his immense generosity. Rode begins surveying the surroundings, taking note of several rough, dangerous-looking men drinking across the hall. Upon noticing a blood-stained broadsword resting across one of the tables, the MC immediately realizes these patrons are a completely different breed. He observes that the tavern is packed with genuine, hardened mercenaries, the kind who put their lives on the line in life-and-death skirmishes daily. Rode knows these brutes live for booze, brawls, and women, quickly deducing that Claire's striking looks must have triggered the tragedy in his past life. Concerned, the MC grabs Claire's arm and mentions it is getting late, suggesting they head back soon so her mother won't worry. Before the girl can respond, Anna rudely intervenes and slaps Rode's hand away to make him release Claire's arm. Anna yells furiously that she has had it with him, complaining that following them was bad enough, but trying to drag Claire away before the party even starts is ridiculous. Claire agrees somewhat awkwardly, explaining she gave her word to Anna and can't simply back out on her friend right now. Anderson chimes in with annoyance, warning Rode not to push his luck, stating that if he wants to leave, he should walk out alone and show some respect. All that shouting ends up catching the attention of the hulking mercenaries nearby, who begin eyeing the wealthy youths with mocking grins. A mercenary walks over chuckling and mocks the young nobles, commenting that instead of staying pampered at home, they decided to party among wolves. The man steps even closer to the group of students, locking his gaze directly onto young Claire. With a menacing sneer and eyes glowing with ill intent, he remarks that they even brought along quite an attractive little lady. Anderson takes offense and demands answers from the tavern manager, asking why these foul-smelling mercenaries are still allowed in the building. The rough brawler turns around with a murderous scowl, demanding to know what that insolent brat just said about his crew. The tavern manager rushes over to de-escalate, timidly suggesting the young master return tomorrow when the venue will be completely cleared. One of Anderson's followers fumes at the suggestion, complaining that leaving would make the heir break his promise and lose face in front of Claire. Panicking, the manager whispers to the noble that these men are ruthless out-of-town sellswords, and it's best not to pick a fight with them. Showing zero fear, Anderson arrogantly scoffs, asking if a bunch of low-rate mercenaries would actually dare cross the air of the prestigious House Rune. One of the sellswords slams his fist onto the table, warning that he doesn't care who the kid is because they own the tavern tonight, telling the brats to clear out. Enraged by the insult to his master, one of Anderson's bodyguards charges forward, shouting that nobody in this region has the audacity to challenge House Rune. A violent crash echoes through the tavern hall as a physical brawl officially breaks out between both sides. Within mere seconds, Anderson's guard is effortlessly overpowered and brutally trampled into the floorboards by the mercenary. Anderson stands completely stunned and speechless, watching these men actually have the nerve to strike them down right before his eyes. The mercenary pours an entire mug of ale over the fallen opponent, asking if they have some kind of death wish to challenge their crew. He continues mocking them, remarking that if they were out in the untamed wilderness, this bunch of spoiled nobles would have been finished long ago. Watching the entire chaotic mess unfold before him, Rhodes simply observes the scene in silence, finding the whole ordeal rather intriguing. Desperate, Anderson calls for a truce and suggests speaking peacefully with their commander, warning that they wouldn't want to make an enemy of a noble lord. The mercenary laughs heartily, mocking the young man by saying he has zero authority to speak with Captain Kent of the Blood Mercenaries. The feared leader of the band, Captain Kent, sits calmly in the shadows with an ale in hand and a massive greatsword strapped to his back. Upon hearing Kent's name, Anderson turns pale with horror, remembering that they are ruthless killers who eliminate even high nobility for the right price. Kent lets out a dark smirk upon recognizing Lord Rune's youngest son, coldly stating that the arrogant kid's life isn't worth a single copper to him. The other noble youths accompanying the party collapse to their knees, trembling in fear, realizing what kind of monsters they just got involved with. Completely terrified, Anna grabs Claire by the shoulders, weeping and crying out that they are totally doomed for crossing the wrong people. The mercenaries burst into loud laughter, mocking the cowardice of the noble youths and relishing their sheer panic at the mere mention of their band's name. Anderson breaks into a cold sweat, knowing he cannot afford to be humiliated here, especially in front of Claire, terrified of ruining his reputation forever. Swallowing his pride, he bows low and apologizes for the attack, begging to resolve the dispute amicably out of respect for the Rune family name. Kent smirks slightly, noting that Lord Rune has indeed built a strong reputation lately, adding that he wouldn't mind doing the Lord a small favor. Hearing that, Anderson's companions let out a massive sigh of relief, immediately praising the heir for rescuing them from such a terrifying ordeal. However, Kent's tone shifts drastically as he demands that the two young ladies dance for his crew and drink with his men if they want their group spared from punishment. To make matters worse, Kent insists that Anderson himself extend the invitation to the girls, putting all the supposed weight of his family name on the line. The other mercenaries begin howling with laughter and celebrating, eager for the rare spectacle of watching highborn ladies dance exclusively for them. Claire is thoroughly disgusted by the vile demand, clutching her chest, while Rhodes maintains an entirely tranquil expression. Anderson timidly tries to step in, telling Captain Kent that such a request is inappropriate, reminding him that Claire is the heiress of the prestigious House Flora. One of the mercenaries barks at Anderson to shut his mouth, asking if he's seriously trying to throw around noble clout over a simple dance. In sheer panic, the other boys drop to their knees and beg Claire to comply, crying out that they don't want to provoke the mercenary band under any circumstances. Claire orders Rhodes to escort Anna out of the tavern immediately, proudly stating that these brutes wouldn't dare lay a finger on the heiress of House Flora. Rhodes raises a calm hand and tells Claire there's no need to take things that far, leaving the girl completely baffled by his easygoing attitude. The MC steps forward with absolute confidence, looking directly at Captain Kent and telling him to wrap up this whole circus right now. Kent glares at the boy with profound contempt, angrily demanding to know who the heck he thinks he is to order him around. Anna screams in a fury, asking if Rode has lost his mind, complaining that Anderson had already defused the situation and that he's going to drag everyone down with him. A hulking, bald brute of a mercenary steps forward, complaining that he can't believe some foolish brat is trying to spoil their evening entertainment. Introduced as Rum, the band's vice captain, he tells his comrades to sit back and watch while he pummels the kid before they enjoy the noble ladies' dance. With terrifying speed and raw strength, the giant leaps straight toward Rode to deliver a bone-crushing blow to the young MC. Claire panics upon seeing the brutal charge, screaming Rhode's name at the top of her lungs, fearing for her childhood friend's safety. Rum is genuinely caught off guard when he notices the boy doesn't even flinch, maintaining a chilling stare that flickers with a mysterious blue flame. Infuriated by that fearless gaze, the vice captain roars that the insolent brat is finished, preparing a violent flame-based special attack. The warrior executes his blazing cleave technique, unleashing a massive destructive wave of fire aimed straight at the MC. With tears streaming down her face, Claire screams the boy's name again while shielding her eyes, horrified by the fiery impact. Anderson yells frantically that they are all going to get wiped out if the sellswords get angry, while his buddy tells him to just let that fool take the fall alone. A deafening metallic clash reverberates throughout the Crystal Tavern the exact second the attacks collide head-on. The other mercenaries stand with their jaws dropped, watching a mere kid effortlessly evade Rum's blazing heavy sword strike. With absolute composure, Rode casually grabs a sword from one of the startled mercenaries nearby, politely asking if he can borrow it for a moment. Rum turns even more furious upon being completely ignored, lunging forward once more with a full-power lethal sword slash. Rode watches the incoming blade and telepathically notifies Bone Crown that this time he is finally wielding a genuine sword. The spectral form of Bone Crown manifests imposingly behind Rode, who unleashes a devastating counterattack by channeling his own power through the steel. A ferocious wave of mystical blue flames erupts through the air, completely overpowering the enemy's fiery assault. The violent clash of blades produces a brilliant cascade of sparks, illuminating the walls and ceiling of the entire tavern hall. Rum's eyes widen in sheer horror as he realizes the absurd gulf in power that exists between himself and the mysterious gray-haired youth. With a sharp, piercing crack, the vice captain's heavy steel blade shatters into countless shards under the incredible force of Rhode's blow. In complete disbelief, Rum stares at his broken hilt, frantically wondering how a kid of that age could completely destroy his weapon. Overcome with embarrassment, the vice captain silently curses the MC for making him look like an absolute fool in front of his chief and crew. Rum lunges straight at Rode with clenched fists, arrogantly yelling that mercenaries are unmatched masters in hand-to-hand combat. He throws a violent punch aimed directly at the boy's head, fully intending to end his life on the spot. Easily slipping past the strike, Rode reflects that his physical body still lacks the raw muscular power to trade direct blows with seasoned fighters. An eerie, glowing-eyed skeletal silhouette begins to materialize through the thick haze of mana generated by the boy. The vice captain tries to back away in terror, but is caught off guard as a massive spectral bone claw relentlessly grips him by the throat. Channeling his signature blue flame technique, the MC casts Roaring Inferno to completely engulf his unsuspecting adversary. A towering pillar of blue fire erupts straight from the floorboards, violently launching the massive frame of the vice captain high into the air. The warrior crashes down hard onto his back against the wooden floor, smashing through everything in his path. Rum ends up completely knocked out and heavily bruised, his eyes rolled back from the massive shockwave of destructive energy he absorbed. In total disbelief, Anderson can barely process that the boy deemed a useless failure just soloed the mercenary's formidable vice captain. Sensing the threat, Captain Kent slowly rises from the shadows, while the rest of the mercenaries draw their weapons with murderous intent. Kent coldly warns that anyone who harms his crew gets carved apart piece by piece and fed to wild beasts right before their own eyes. The other nobles spiral into pure panic, complaining that Rhode's brief victory only served to completely enrage a ruthless band of killers. The cowardly boys suggest using Rhode's distraction to make a run for it, claiming the entire mess is solely the MC's fault. Anna frantically pulls on Claire's arm, urging her to escape, scolding her friend for still worrying about a stubborn boy who chose to stay behind. Rode watches Claire get dragged toward the exit, thinking with relief that without her around to watch him, his moves will be infinitely simpler to execute. Kent flashes a sadistic smirk and informs the boy he won't end his life just yet, intending to make him suffer all night before demanding a hefty ransom from House Morris. With a chilling glare, Rode calmly plans to wipe out everyone in the room, figuring Captain Kent would make a reasonably decent undead servant for his ranks. As the MC silently weighs Kent's worth, heavy, measured footsteps of a mysterious newcomer echo loudly across the tavern floor. Startled by the sudden interruption, Kent whips around toward the entrance in a fury, shouting to find out what arrogant intruder has a death wish. The man who just stepped inside is Knight Leon, striding through the tavern hall with unmatched elegance and commanding authority. Kent stands entirely frozen in sheer dread upon recognizing the elite warrior, shakily asking what Lord Leon is doing in a place like this. Completely ignoring Kent, Leon approaches Rode with immense deference, asking with genuine concern if those thugs dared lay a hand on him. He chuckles at his own question, remarking that it's impossible for them to touch the MC, recalling that not even he could last a single round against Rode. Kent is utterly bewildered and terrified, wondering why the legendary Lord Leon is treating a mere kid with such profound respect, addressing him as master. Leon spins around with fury, demanding to know who gave Kent permission to threaten Rode, revealing that he is an honored guest of the mighty House Ashblade. Kent realizes he is completely doomed, as House Ashblade rules the North with an iron fist, and a single misstep against them could wipe out his entire band today. Without a second thought, the captain drops to his knees before Rode, begging for mercy and pleading for forgiveness for his foolish blindness. The remaining mercenaries are left entirely dumbfounded, watching their proud leader humiliate himself and beg for clemency from that young boy. Kent offers the official emblem of the Blood Mercenaries as a tribute, humbly requesting that Master Rode accept his formal apology. He pledges absolute allegiance from that moment forward, vowing that his mercenary outfit will operate entirely under Rode's command and bidding. Rode reflects that with Bone Crown by his side, a living, obedient mercenary band is far more useful to him than a pile of rotting corpses. The MC accepts the medallion and decides to spare their lives for now, strictly out of consideration for Knight Leon's timely intervention. However, even after choosing to spare them, Rode coldly decides that a severe disciplinary lesson is still absolutely necessary for the captain. A chilling, spectral wind suddenly sweeps through the venue, sending a terrifying shiver of raw dread racing through Kent's entire body. Blue flames begin dancing silently around the captain, who remains paralyzed before the MC's overwhelming, ominous presence. The dreadful bone spirit emerges from the shadows and lashes at the mercenary's soul with razor-sharp claws, shattering his resolve in an instant. Kent screams in excruciating agony as an unseen force siphons his vital energy, leaving him on the brink of collapse on the tavern floor. Rode signals Leon that it's time to depart, entirely tuning out Kent's desperate cries as the man continues begging on his knees for his life. One of his henchmen rushes over to aid Kent, informing his captain that the mysterious boy and the knight have finally exited the establishment. Still trembling and gasping for breath, Kent whispers in relief that they were lucky not to anger the boy further, or the entire outfit would have been eradicated today. Leon escorts the MC aboard a swift carriage, mentioning that Lord Igna Ashblade is already waiting eagerly for his arrival at the manor. Shortly after, they pull up to the massive, imposing estate of the wealthy Ashblade clan, perched high atop the city's prominent hillside. Stepping into the luxurious quarters of the estate, Rode finds Eleanor and her grandfather Igna waiting patiently for the start of the purification treatment. Eleanor beams with a relieved smile upon seeing the MC walk in, joyfully celebrating that the master has finally arrived to assist them. She presents a silver tray bearing several rare mystical ingredients, asking if those will be sufficient for the cleansing ritual. Eleanor explains that those magical items are extraordinarily scarce across the realm, requiring a tremendous effort from her family to track down. The MC coldly replies that those will do just fine and extends his hand, channeling his blue mana over the tray of components. Seated in his armchair, the elderly Igna begins sweating nervously as he watches the mysterious blue flame flicker from the ingredients before him. With a focused and determined expression, Rode firmly commands everyone in the room to step back so he can initiate the healing process. Rode's gaze sharpens with absolute concentration as spiritual energy begins to circulate powerfully around his youthful frame. Suddenly, a terrifying spectral purple skull with glowing crimson eyes erupts from Igna's chest, exposing the dreadful demonic curse. Without showing an ounce of hesitation, Rode thrusts his hand forward, cloaked in blue flames, to intercept the malicious entity trying to break free. Utilizing advanced necromancy, the MC binds the spectral fiend with chains of spiritual energy, completely neutralizing its movements. With a resolute and unyielding glare, the young master informs the foul entity that it has nowhere left to run. The spectral skull howls in desperate agony as it is ruthlessly crushed under the MC's absolute, pinpoint, magical control. Eleanor watches the scene in utter shock, realizing that grotesque abomination was the evil spirit that tormented her beloved grandfather for 10 long years. Leon breaks into a cold sweat before that terrifying aura, marveling at Rhodes' power and recalling with shame the time he dared challenge him in the past. Sensing the demon's lingering resistance, the MC scoffs, asking if the creature truly believes it has any chance of escaping his grasp. Rhodes clenches his fist with tremendous force, causing the energy to violently compress until the spiritual monster's structure completely implodes. The MC manipulates the scattered demonic remnants, carefully condensing them into a radiant sphere of pure, refined energy. Issuing a firm sealing incantation, he channels that dense power directly into the precious blue gemstone resting on the silver tray. Rhodes celebrates successfully refining a death stone in his new life, planning to use that immense reservoir of power to further empower his bone crown. Leon exclaims in awe that the malignant spirit which tortured their patriarch for over a decade was excised effortlessly by the MC. Eleanor rushes over to her grandfather's side, asking with deep affection how the elder is feeling now that the ritual is complete. In a grave tone, Rhodes warns Eleanor to keep her distance from the elder for the moment, leaving the young heiress thoroughly puzzled. Suddenly, Igna's eyes snap wide open as he unleashes a deafening roar, releasing a massive surge of pent-up energy coursing through his body. Eleanor recoils in alarm from her grandfather's sudden outburst, anxiously wondering what is truly happening to his body right now. Rhodes calmly explains that the parasite had been siphoning his life force, but with its removal, the elder's full might will now rapidly rebound. True to his words, the mighty patriarch stands tall, enveloped in a radiant golden aura that marks the triumphant return of his true strength. Igna gazes in disbelief at his own hands, celebrating that he not only reclaimed his power, but also broke through to the peak of intermediate archmage. He roars with hearty laughter, remarking that he never dreamed he would still have the chance to reach advanced archmage at his age. Deeply moved, Leon recalls how House Ashblade had been suppressed by rival clans due to the curse, realizing their fortunes have finally reversed. The knight gazes at the MC's back with profound gratitude, thinking that all of this was made possible solely through Master Rhodes' generous aid. Eleanor rushes over to her grandfather, completely baffled by the drastic transformation, asking what is truly taking place. Rhodes clarifies that the curse acted as grueling conditioning for the elder's body over those 10 years, and Igna's robust foundation enabled this massive breakthrough. Eleanor is amazed by the logical explanation, asking if that means her grandfather managed to turn a dreadful curse into a magnificent blessing. Igna affectionately pats his granddaughter's head, confirming that Rhodes purged the foul creature, bringing him just one step away from the advanced tier. With a resolute gaze, the patriarch declares that from this point forward, House Ashblade can finally reclaim everything it lost over the years. He expresses his deepest thanks to Rhodes, declaring that his family will never forget his benevolence, pledging to obey the youth's every command. The MC calmly replies that such devotion is unnecessary since he already received what he wanted, though he reveals he has an important inquiry to make. Showing absolute respect and attentiveness to his savior, the elder immediately invites Master Rhodes to ask whatever he wishes without hesitation. Rhodes asks where the elder originally contracted the curse, knowing that uncovering the site means he won't have to worry about sourcing death stones again. Igna reveals that everything took place a decade ago in the Valley of Lamentations during an imperial campaign where he fell into a demonic trap. Knowing the Valley of Lamentations is teeming with high-tier monsters, Rhodes decides to hold off on those plans until he grows strong enough to explore it safely. The scene shifts to the noble carriage rolling down the road, as Leon politely addresses the young master from within the cabin. The knight informs him that the private residence he requested is completely ready, situated conveniently close to the Seven Cities Magic Academy. The MC calmly steps down from the vehicle to finally inspect the new property that will serve as his regional base of operations. Standing before him is a sprawling, luxurious estate featuring breathtaking architecture fit for high-ranking royalty. Rhodes feels slightly sheepish, muttering to himself that he merely asked for a modest place to crash, not a massive mansion of this scale. Back at the primary manor, old Igna's booming laughter echoes cheerfully through the grand hallways of the Ashblade estate. Eleanor fondly remarks that her grandfather hasn't stopped laughing for hours, reminding him that Master Road departed quite some time ago. The grandfather apologizes, stating that Road is the most enigmatic and formidable individual he has ever encountered, advising Eleanor to cultivate a strong bond with him. Eleanor blushes slightly at her grandfather's suggestion, replying in a soft voice, shyly confirming that she already knows what she ought to do. Igna takes on a grave expression, stating that the time has come to settle the score with Rustblade, suspecting he orchestrated the curse in the past. Meanwhile, the scene transitions to the grand estate of House Flora, enveloped in the quiet stillness of the newly fallen night. Upon entering her lavish home, Claire is promptly met by her mother, who sternly questions why she arrived home so late. She asks point-blank if the girl met with the boy from House Morris and whether the two managed to get along well throughout the day. Claire looks away rather awkwardly, offering a shy and brief reply to her mother, confirming only that they did indeed cross paths. Her mother asks her not to treat him poorly like everyone else does, and Claire reassures her mother, promising to make an effort to get along with him from now on. Claire gazes at her surroundings, privately thinking that perhaps Road isn't the talentless, useless boy everyone makes him out to be. Inside his new luxury chambers near the academy, the MC quietly prepares in the dead of night for his upcoming ritual. Gripping the radiant death stone firmly in his hands, the young necromancer decides the exact moment to evolve his technique has arrived. With firm determination in his voice, Road calls upon his loyal spectral minion, Bone Crown, who begins answering the summons immediately. The mighty spectral warrior materializes on one knee amidst eerie blue flames, answering his master's call with absolute fidelity. Road knows that Bone Crown's core decayed over centuries, but with his flawless swordsmanship, he won't be disadvantaged against anyone below Advanced Archmage. The MC hoists the glowing blue magical gemstone into the air to initiate the direct spiritual energy transfer to his loyal warrior. With commanding authority, Road orders his spectral minion to accept the rich energy tribute and commence his mystical evolution. The brilliant blue gemstone suddenly shatters in mid-air, releasing an overwhelming cascade of pure spiritual particles. The ethereal power begins swirling through the chamber in gorgeous, shimmering spirals of light, completely enveloping both figures in the room. A menacing shadow silhouette with radiant eyes emerges from the mist, voraciously absorbing every drop of liberated energy from the air. A sharp snap of blue static electricity crackles through the room, signaling the flawless completion of the soul absorption process. Road stands tall in the center of the hall, entirely wrapped in a radiant, crackling aura of pure light blue mystical electricity. The boy realizes in pleasant surprise that his minion's massive evolution channeled feedback energy directly to him, forcing a breakthrough in his own power. Looking down at his hands dancing with blue flames, the MC joyfully celebrates reaching the absolute peak of the apprentice archmage tier. Road notes with satisfaction that his warrior evolved significantly, but reminds himself to proceed with caution and keep a low profile in public. The following morning, routine activities resume within the Seven Cities Magic Academy, with students bustling through the hallways. Noticing her best friend looking distracted in the corridors, Anna curiously asks what she is searching for so intently. Claire mentions with concern that Road hasn't shown up, and Anna coldly scoffs that the mercenaries likely threw him to the wild beasts already. Claire snaps back sharply with her eyes flashing purple, reminding her friend that the MC chose to stay behind specifically to protect them. Anna tries to placate Claire, claiming she was only stating the obvious, reminding her that those brutes were the notorious blood mercenaries. Anderson stomps down the stairs, furious that Rhodes stole his spotlight, while his lackey remarks that the MC brought his fate upon himself. However, upon turning around, Anderson jumps in sheer shock as he sees Rhodes casually strolling past him up the academy staircase. Anderson panics upon seeing him alive and completely uninjured, thinking he should have been battered or badly maimed after last night. Claire sprints over to Rhodes in immense relief, mentioning her mother was worried, while he simply smiles and reassures her the sellswords won't bother them again. Anderson and Anna stand completely dumbfounded, wondering how he emerged unscathed and what actually went down at the tavern after they fled. Anna mockingly assumes House Morris must have paid a massive ransom for the boy, and Anderson agrees, sneering that the slacker only brings shame to his house. The sound of sharp, rhythmic, high-heeled footsteps echoes down the hallway, instantly seizing the attention of every student in the corridor. Introducing herself as Margaret, the practical magic instructor announces that today's lesson will be a live combat exercise inside the Forest of Monsters. Rhodes recalls that the forest is the active territory of the blood mercenaries, concluding he needs to stay vigilant to ensure Claire's safety. In a highly discreet manner, the MC clutches his magical communication device to reach out to his dependable subordinates. Slipping away from the crowd in the hallway, Road activates the communicator and contacts Captain Kent directly to gather intelligence. On the other end of the line, Kent answers immediately with profound reverence, stating he is ready to reveal every single detail the Master requires. Road demands a full breakdown of the Forest of Monsters, noting that his crew operates there and must know every hidden secret of the terrain. Kent discloses that an ancient tomb in the deep zones began leaking dark energy, driving the local beasts into a frenzy and spawning a roaming monster horde. He warns that practically no one has returned alive from the inner perimeter, cautioning that the zone around the tomb is exceptionally hazardous and strictly forbidden. Kent reassures him that common beasts pose no threat to the boy, eagerly offering his men to guide Road through the mystical woodland. In a detached tone, the young master declines the escort, stating that the intel provided is more than enough for his current objectives. He reflects that while the region represents a fatal hazard for ordinary students, for his necromantic prowess, that tomb is a gold mine. The academy students begin boarding the wooden transport carriages in an orderly fashion to head out toward the exercise grounds. From atop the carriage, Anna excitedly points at the scenic landscape, while Claire watches her with a calm, friendly smile. In another carriage cabin, Anderson's lackey whispers discreetly to the noble, asking if they still plan to make a move against Road as discussed. Anderson replies that his primary focus is Claire, but angrily warns that if the boy tries to interfere again, he will face severe consequences. The convoy finally reaches the outer boundaries of the Forest of Monsters, with students stepping out into a wide clearing facing the dense tree line. Margaret addresses the class, praising their theoretical talent, and announces that the time has come to put their skills to the test in real combat. She explains that the population of Shadowclaw wolves has spiked across the area, ordering each student to bring back one wolf claw as proof before nightfall. Suddenly, a blazing flare erupts among the trees as a massive fire blast violently shatters the forest clearing's tranquility. An enormous fireball vaporizes one of the wooden targets, prompting the students to cheer wildly over Anderson's impressive spellcasting display. Holding lingering embers in his palms, Anderson grins confidently, thinking this is his golden opportunity to dazzle Claire with his battle magic. Anna is thoroughly awestruck by the demonstration, urging Claire that they should team up with his group to complete the hunt in complete safety. However, Claire hesitates, thoughtfully suggesting it would be far safer to stick with Road, noting that not even the mercenaries managed to take him down. Standing apart from the commotion, Road closes his eyes amidst the breeze, expanding his sensory mana to map out the entire perimeter. The MC reflects with satisfaction that after hitting the peak of Apprentice Archmage, his sensory detection radius expanded to 300 meters. Alongside nearby wolves and venomous reptiles, he detects fluctuations of death radiating from the deep forest that match Kent's report to the letter. Committed to keeping the girl safe, Road casually walks over to Claire and calmly suggests they form a duo for the hunt. Claire breaks into a bright, spontaneous smile upon hearing the MC's offer, readily accepting the partnership without a second thought. Anderson arrogantly hoists the body of a defeated wolf, basking in the applause and cheers of his fawning group of followers. With a smug grin of superiority, the heir remarks that such a weak, low-tier beast poses zero challenge to someone of his caliber. Anna grabs Claire's arm and drags her toward the noble, insisting his power proves they should join the wealthy heir's squad immediately. Waving cheerfully from a distance, Anna calls out to the young man, asking point-blank if she and Claire can join his hunting party for the day. Anderson flashes a broad, triumphant grin and eagerly agrees, assuring them he will personally guarantee both young ladies' safety during the hunt. Suddenly, a gentle rustle of leaves echoes behind a thicket where a striped beast was resting peacefully on a mossy boulder. The creature opens its eyes, consumed by an eerie purple haze of feral fury, coiling its muscles to launch a fatal pounce. The beast reveals itself as a colossal, terrifying black monster with glowing eyes, wrapped in a dense, menacing shroud of destructive energy. Sensing the drastic shift in the forest's aura, Road glances back with suspicion, focusing his attention on the bizarre behavior of the wildlife. On high alert, Instructor Margaret detects the terrifying presence of a monster lord within the perimeter, noting that Road also seems to have spotted the danger. Margaret quickly instructs Road to watch over the other students while she dashes into the deep forest to hunt down and eliminate the dominant threat. Anderson scoffs in annoyance at the instructor's order, questioning why a nobody like Road should protect him after he just took down a wolf. Road tunes out his grumbling, reflecting that the death aura is driving local beasts berserk, creating a hazard no ordinary noble youth can handle. Oblivious to the true danger, Anderson continues bragging to the class, promising to hunt down all the required wolf claws for the group to their cheers. The group of students continues treading cautiously in silence through the forest of monsters, shaded beneath the canopy of dark trees. Anderson finds the sudden silence peculiar, wondering where all the wolves that were roaming around moments ago have disappeared to. Out of nowhere, a ferocious wolf leaps from the brush, and Anderson arrogantly cheers, calling out for Rode to watch his grand display of courage. The young noble channels mana into his hands, hurling a powerful fireball straight at the beast lunging toward him. The massive fireball strikes the monster squarely on the skull, unleashing a brilliant flash and a fiery explosion into the air. To the young man's horror, the beast emerges from the inferno completely untouched, showing zero signs of pain or injury. With blinding agility, the wolf executes a vicious leap, grazing right past the startled Anderson, while completely ignoring his attack. Breaking into a cold sweat, the young man cries out in sheer confusion as to why his one-shot fireball failed to even scratch the beast this time. The enraged wolf snaps its razor-sharp jaws and lets out a terrifying howl, its eyes burning with a sinister crimson hue. As Anderson curls up in terror to shield himself, the MC Rode steps up quietly from behind, chanting his roaring inferno. The beast's eyes reflect the sudden burst of intense blue flames that erupt into the air, instantly snuffing out all the monster's feral rage. Anderson stands completely dumbfounded as he watches Rode wield mystic blue flames, unable to comprehend the absurd power of his rival. The monster crashes down defeated and lifeless onto the forest floor, its frame still smoldering with residual traces of Rode's spiritual mana. Claire is left in awe seeing Rode take down in a single blow the very wolf that Anderson was completely helpless to scratch or slow down. Anna realizes in cold dread that Rode survived the mercenaries through his own sheer strength, unable to accept that the failure possesses such power. Noticing there are far too many beasts in the vicinity to fight simultaneously, Rode prepares to summon his colossal Earth Cleaver. The MC sprints alone toward the high-risk sector of the woods, while Claire screams desperately for him to turn back immediately. Venturing into the dense thicket, Rode is swiftly surrounded by dozens of glowing-eyed, frenzied wolves glaring at him with pure bloodlust. Showing zero fear before the savage pack, Rode calmly commands his massive skeletal summon to materialize. The ground trembles violently as the Earth Cleaver erupts, crushing the terrain beneath its colossal bone claws, shattering everything around Rode. Mounted atop the massive creature, Rode orders his minion to wipe out every wolf tainted by the dark mana in this sector of the forest. The Earth Cleaver opens its massive jaws and unleashes a deafening roar of pure devastation, channeling the terrifying force of blue flames. With a thunderous slam, the skeletal behemoth strikes the earth with immense force, blasting the entire pack of wolves backward in one sweep. Anderson feels the shockwave from a distance and panics, desperately praying that the terrifying Earth Cleaver doesn't head in their direction. Claire worries for Rode's safety, but Anna dismisses it with disdain, claiming he abandoned them and likely got eaten alive by the monster. Anna shakily begs Anderson to keep them safe, causing the noble to break into a cold sweat as he hesitantly nods while trying to mask his terror. The Earth Cleaver presses on with its relentless hunt through the dense thicket, effortlessly crushing the tainted beasts under its young master's orders. The towering bone summon stands tall amidst the blue haze, having swiftly eradicated all the hostile threats within the sector. Rode spots a few wolves that remain untainted by the dark fog, calmly instructing his servant to spare them and let them flee. The colossal bone beast complies, remaining stationary in the clearing as the frightened creatures scatter toward the safe zone of the forest. A sudden rustle of shifting leaves and branches mysteriously breaks the woodland silence nearby. On the other side, Anna clutches her head in absolute panic, screaming to ask if the giant monster is actually charging straight toward them. Seeing that it's merely ordinary wolves running in a panic rather than the giant beast, the girl exhales in massive relief, glad they dodged disaster. Anderson instantly regains his smug composure, heroically promising that he will personally protect Claire and Anna from any standard wolves. Meanwhile, deep within the heart of the mystical woods, Instructor Margaret channels an immense pool of magical energy into her battle staff. With sharp focus and her eyes glowing with brilliant gold light, she locks onto the colossal beast and prepares her most devastating spell. She executes her celestial fire incantation, launching a towering pillar of searing heat and light straight into the sky. Margaret celebrates the success of the destructive strike upon watching the mighty monster lord end up completely charred to ash on the ground. However, she notices the beast carried dark mana in its system, worriedly deducing that something catastrophic is unraveling in the forest depths. Suddenly, her eyes widen in sheer horror as she detects a terrifying new spiritual presence manifesting nearby. The rhythmic clatter of approaching hooves startles the instructor, revealing a bizarre mounted silhouette cloaked in thick blue mystical flames. The phantom steed treads upon the muddy ground, leaving glowing blue energy footprints, confirming the true threat has finally revealed itself. It is none other than the legendary undead knight, emerging atop its skeletal steed as the genuine source of all the dark mist. Margaret realizes in shock that the dreadful entity is a spectral knight resurrected directly from an ancient tomb within the abyss. She notes its power is astronomical, with an intermediate archmage aura that has been driving all the local beasts into a frenzy. Despite being outmatched in power, Margaret knows that retreating means every student will be wiped out, resolving to risk everything to stop it right here. Without hesitation, she channels all her remaining mana at once, concentrating a colossal mass of extreme heat at the tip of her staff. With a determined shout, the instructor unleashes her ultimate technique, Celestial Fire Meteor, to deliver her final strike. A titanic pillar of destructive flame descends from the heavens like a blazing meteor, tearing through the air and illuminating the entire forest. The overwhelming strike lands with pinpoint precision, directly atop the undead knight, triggering a massive explosion. A colossal burst of crimson flames completely swallows the enemy, bathing the woodland in an overwhelming blaze. Panting and exhausted from the massive output, Margaret offers a hopeful smile, wondering if she finally managed to bring the monster down. Suddenly, the undead knight emerges entirely unscathed from the inferno, delivering a swift, brutal slash that launches the instructor backward. Rode watches the spectral rider from the shadows, while the injured instructor crashes heavily onto the damp forest floor. The MC commends the Earth Cleaver for its stellar work in the woods, calmly commanding the giant skeletal summon to return. Immediately after, Rode senses a massive fluctuation of dark mana, locking his focus onto the ominous presence radiating from the enemy. Looking toward the blue flames, the young master observes with a serious expression that the real opponent is finally heading his way. The monster points its heavy spear toward the MC, who easily deduces it is an elite warrior awakened by the dark mist. With an imposing dark presence, Rode declares himself the sovereign of the dead, warning his adversary that it should be down on its knees. Brushing off the warning, the spectral rider charges atop its beast, unleashing a rapid thrust with its heavy spear straight at the boy. The underworld warrior radiates a crushing aura of blue energy as it executes its lethal offensive charges. A sharp metallic impact echoes through the air the exact second the MC cleanly dodges the knight's brutal thrusts with pinpoint precision. The violent clash of forces sends a heavy shockwave ripping through the woods, gouging deep fissures into the earth and tossing debris everywhere. Rode gauges his opponent's power, reflecting that the dark energy enveloping the rider is remarkably dense for its current standing. From afar, Anderson and the girls watch in horror as a massive, dark vortex of magical energy rises ominously into the sky. Claire trembles in dread before the overwhelming darkness, covering her mouth as she admits her body simply won't stop shaking. Anderson points toward the vortex, tensely remarking that is the exact direction that foolish Rode ran off to all by himself moments ago. Meanwhile, Instructor Margaret lies badly hurt upon the scorched earth, watching the terrifying clash unfold before her eyes. Battered and struggling for breath, her eyes widen in absolute disbelief as she witnesses the true power of Rode's hidden combat abilities. Margaret attempts to push herself up with immense effort, knowing the students are in that direction, and she must stop the beast at all costs. In the devastated clearing, the young necromancer stands composed before the undead knight, who remains mounted upon its phantom steed. Rode accurately deduces that the dark mist stripped away the opponent's sanity, leaving only a primal drive to hunt strong prey to evolve. Looking at his spectral foe with contempt, the young master calls it pathetic, coldly stating he will put a permanent end to its suffering. The undead knight quickly prepares to deliver another crushing physical blow with its heavy spear against the boy. The spectral creature stammers through the blue mist, recognizing the aura of spiritual royalty radiating from the MC. The warrior roars that it will never submit to his will, executing its powerful charging skill with extreme violence. Blasting forward at blinding speed, the knight kicks up a massive cloud of dust and wind, aiming straight for the young MC's chest. Rode calmly raises his blue flame-clad fingers, fully aware his current physical tier prevents him from clashing head-on with that charge. He elegantly executes his necromantic art, Echo of Memories, channeling a potent illusion spell straight into the opponent's psyche. With a dark grin spreading across his face, the necromancer tells the underworld warrior to savor the mental nightmare he specially prepared. The knight's mind is violently cast back to a chaotic, devastating battlefield from its past, littered with ruins and fallen comrades. Amidst the heavy spiritual interference, the warrior gazes upon its own blood-stained hands and the torment of its allies within the illusion. He finds himself surrounded by dozens of phantom soldiers in brutal combat, reliving every ounce of agony from his oldest memories. Overwhelmed by agonizing mental torment from Rhodes' spell, the undead knight unleashes a roar of pure spiritual despair. Massive mystical blue eyes manifest in the dark sky of the illusion, as Rhodes telepathically warns that this mental realm will be its final resting place. The MC concludes that this adversary, matching his servant's tier, is the ultimate opportunity to test the true power of Bone Crown. The MC eagerly declares that this will officially mark the first battle utilizing the fully restored peak power of his loyal minion. With absolute loyalty and resolve resonating in his voice, the spiritual warrior promises his lord that he will annihilate the enemy without mercy. Driven completely mad by the psychic spell, the undead knight turns into an unhinged combat engine, screaming that it will slaughter everyone. Without hesitation, Bone Crown delivers a sweeping, mighty cleave with his colossal greatsword cloaked in brilliant blue flames. The weapons of both mystical champions collide with earth-shattering force in the center of the clearing, sparking a massive detonation of spiritual power. The howling sound of slicing wind tears violently through the air, snapping tree trunks and obliterating boulders around the clash. An immense boom echoes throughout the entire forest of monsters as dark and spiritual energies collide in a direct contest of power. The two knights engage in a breathtaking high-speed duel, trading dozens of precise blows that illuminate the pitch-black clearing. The woodland floor is carved with deep chasms left behind by the sharp energy arcs released with every thunderous impact of their weapons. Displaying flawless mystic swordsmanship, Bone Crown effortlessly parries and deflects the brutal thrusts of the enemy's heavy spear. The violent metallic clash of their weapons unleashes a storm of radiant mana sparks that scatter rapidly into the frosty air. Focusing all his spiritual might into the edge of his blade, Rhodes' faithful servant readies his most devastating finishing technique. Delivering an unstoppable descending cleave, Bone Crown strikes the opponent's armor with surgical precision, shattering its combat guard. With its heavy iron spear snapped clean in half by the blow, the underworld champion mutters in sheer awe of its rival's devastating strength. The undead knight roars in blind fury as it tries to stay mounted on its steed, refusing to accept the looming defeat. Armed with what remains of its broken weapon, the spectral rider launches a desperate, hate-filled charge straight at Bone Crown. Bone Crown executes a flawless swing with his massive greatsword, generating a cutting gale in a relentless counterattack. The mighty strike of dark blue spiritual energy slices through the air with devastating accuracy, completely overwhelming the enemy's reckless charge. With a completely impassive expression beneath his helm, the faithful minion prepares to deliver the final blow to his adversary. Activating his Pale Blade Veil technique, he manipulates the blue flames around his frame, unleashing a whirlwind of rapid, razor-sharp slashes. A colossal mystical explosion of blue and purple flames engulfs the undead knight, sealing the fate of the deep woodland terror. The opponent's body collapses lifelessly from its skeletal steed, rapidly disintegrating under the overwhelming power of Rhodes' spiritual energy. Rhodes watches the ashes scatter into the wind, noting that the heavy surge of dark energy has finally vanished from the sector. Bone Crown sheathes his massive broadsword and calmly strides back toward his master, following the conclusion of his first major battle. The Phantom Warrior approaches with profound respect, dropping to one knee before the MC to present the battle's results. He had demonstrated the formidable soul-stagnating piercing technique, securing an absolute and overwhelming victory over the adversary. A massive column of blue energy disperses into the clear sky, freeing the warrior's soul from its ancient, dark servitude. In his spectral thoughts, the faithful servant proudly reflects that his lord has finally granted the eternal peace of true rest to the enemy. The skeletal steed and hollow armor crash hard against the forest soil, dissolving entirely into glowing blue spiritual dust. Rhodes watches in silence as the final traces of magical energy rise toward the clouds, clearing the oppressive atmosphere from the area. Kneeling with an imposing posture, the mystic minion proudly reports to his master that the Dark Knight has finally been vanquished. Rhodes walks smoothly across the devastated clearing, coldly praising his servant for his stellar combat performance. The MC effortlessly scoops up a lingering spark of pale blue flame left behind by the fallen enemy to purify it. Rhodes laments the suffering of that lost soul and uses his necromancy to disperse it, wishing it eternal rest for all time. Leaning heavily on her battle staff, Instructor Margaret limps through the dense brush, desperately searching for her students. Battered and out of breath, the instructor repeats to herself that she must stop the night no matter what to protect her students from real harm. Upon stepping into the massive, devastated clearing, Margaret's eyes widen in sheer shock at the sight before her. She spots young Master Road standing alone in the center of a massive crater of destruction, bathed in broad daylight within the woods. The instructor is completely dumbfounded to recognize the boy, wondering in disbelief what the young heir of House Morris is doing out there all by himself. Noting that the Phantom Knight's crushing presence vanished in that exact spot, she wonders in cold dread if the boy was the one who brought it down. Road turns around with complete composure, remarking in a gentle tone of relief that he is glad to see the instructor safe and sound after the clash. Margaret steps forward with suspicion, asking point-blank if he saw the terrifying headless rider awakened by dark mana in the woods. Lying with total ease, Road claims from behind his shoulder that he saw no such beast, leaving the instructor puzzled by the massive crater. The MC claims that the clearing was already completely devastated when he arrived, while tracking the footprints of the Shadowclaw wolves. Even though he denies it, Margaret sensed no other massive energy nearby, suspecting the boy is deliberately concealing his true mystical strength. Margaret decides to accept the explanation for now, but insists on thanking the boy on behalf of all the students for helping keep things secure. The MC tells her to brush it aside, maturely advising that she shouldn't return to the main group injured so as not to worry the students. Margaret glances down at herself, quietly agreeing that the boy is completely right and that she needs to tend to her wounds before heading back. She raises her hands and channels a powerful golden restoration spell, mending her injuries and fixing her torn garments within seconds. Fully recovered and with a bright smile on her face, the instructor turns back to speak with Road, only to be caught completely off guard. Margaret is thoroughly baffled to find that the MC vanished into thin air without leaving a single trace, wondering where he could have gone. Discreetly tracking the lingering traces of dark mana through the deep woods, Road plans to pinpoint the exact location of the ancient tomb Kent described. As he presses further into the depths, he notes in awe that the dark haze of mana grows infinitely thicker and more concentrated. The young necromancer finally discovers the ominous entrance of an ancient ruined cavern from where the awakened undead knight had emerged. Inside the dark, mystic stone ruins, a massive vortex of purple and black flames swirls menacingly before the boy. Without hesitation, Road steps into the chamber surrounded by mystic purple flames coating the ancient stone walls of the structure. The MC lets out a subtle grin of satisfaction, realizing he has finally located his primary objective within the forest. Revealed before him is a massive glowing blue arcane circle drawn into the stone floor, confirming every single one of his suspicions. The MC extends his hand, manipulating spiritual energy with lightning speed, directly overriding the mana circulation of the seal. With an icy tone of absolute command, the young necromancer orders the immediate purge of any foreign mystical presence from the area. A sharp crack of energy reverberates through the cavern the exact moment the MC seizes absolute control over the seal's entire circulation. Road examines the dark mana stones surrounding the formation, realizing someone deliberately used an artificial setup to awaken the knight on purpose. He deduces that this arcane circle is the root cause of the forest's imbalance, concluding that someone is orchestrating sinister plots behind the scenes. Picking up a mystic gem from the floor, Road scoffs at the crude spell, calling it an insult to the true art of necromancy. Road pockets the dark mana stones for himself, thinking they might come in handy down the road. Margaret watches her students from afar, relieved to see that everyone is safe and that the undead knight didn't attack them. The instructor approaches and asks if everyone has finished their assignments, stating they will head back to the academy once the whole group gathers. Claire worriedly mentions that Road hasn't returned yet, explaining that a terrifying mana vortex erupted right after the boy went into the forest. Margaret asks if the mana vortex truly appeared after Road entered the woods, and Claire confirms that was the case. Margaret realizes the resurrected undead knight was brought down by Road, wondering with a chill just how absurdly strong the boy truly is. Anderson scoffs, claiming Road must have run away in terror from the mana vortex, with the other boys agreeing and calling the MC a coward. Margaret cuts the chatter short, firmly stating that Road will be back shortly, and they will only depart once he returns. A few students gossip among themselves, doubting he can make it back and snickering that he probably got devoured by a Shadowclaw wolf. Anderson asks what that mana vortex was all about, noting that even the Shadowclaw wolves were behaving extremely bizarrely. Margaret makes up an excuse that it was just a random mana eruption, assuring them the forest is secure and the wolves have calmed down. Anderson assumes Road genuinely fled, bragging to himself that the boy merely got lucky and that he could have done the exact same thing. Anderson and the others laugh upon seeing Road walk back, calling the boy a runaway and saying he should have sprinted all the way back to his mother. Claire runs up to Road to ask if he is all right, and the MC calmly replies that everything is completely fine. Road walks right past the other students without giving them a second thought, leaving Anderson thoroughly irritated by his silence. Margaret watches the boy arrive, calling him over with an intensely curious look in her eyes. Road lets her know he wrapped up his task and hands over the wolf claw as proof, mentioning they can now head back. Margaret notices the dark mana has completely vanished from the woods, wondering if the boy truly eliminated the root of all that evil. She brushes the thoughts aside, reminding herself that Road is just her student, and her primary duty is to keep all of them safe. Margaret wraps up the practical magic session for the day, and all the students begin heading back home in high spirits. The carriages roll down the road, carrying the students back toward the Grand Seven Cities Magic Academy. Meanwhile, a mysterious shadow steps into the dark depths of the cavern, where the magical seal had been set up in the forest. The hooded figure slowly walks up to the center of the large arcane circle inscribed on the ground. Upon touching the ruined stone floor, the mysterious individual instantly realizes that someone completely dismantled their magical formation. The figure deduces that the creature should have awakened, wondering if a passing Imperial Grandmaster uncovered and dismantled the plan. With a glare burning with pure rage, the figure declares that no one will be permitted to disrupt their plans, vowing a fatal end for whoever interfered. The next day, regular routines resume at the prestigious Magic Academy as another round of classes gets underway. Road wonders how much the instructor actually saw of what he did, but decides to use the opportunity to ask about the Tier of the Dead. While walking through the academy's outer corridors, a sudden commotion catches the students' attention. An exceptionally sharp-looking blonde youth strolls calmly through the courtyard, drawing the eyes of several female students. The girls are captivated by young Kaya's good looks, commenting that he is entirely different from the other spoiled nobles at the academy. Anderson watches with burning envy and frustration, complaining that the girls only fawn over Kaya because his brother is a prominent archmage. Noticing his classmates' rage, Road asks point-blank if he truly despises the blonde youth that much. Anderson gets even more irritated, replying that Kaya is his biggest rival and that he is the one who should be surrounded by pretty girls. The MC recalls that in his past life, he also harbored intense jealousy toward Kaya, but things are entirely different now. Suddenly, firm footsteps echo through the courtyard as someone halts directly in front of the group of chatting boys. Kaya stands right before them with a smirk on his face, asking them to politely clear the path. Anderson fumes at the boy's attitude, snapping that Kaya is the one who should step aside, kicking off a tense standoff in the courtyard. The two glare at each other with pure hostility, sparks practically flying from their eyes from their mutual rivalry. The surrounding students begin whispering with concern over the feud, well aware that both of their families hold immense power. Margaret appears in the hallway, asking why they are blocking the entrance, suggesting they settle their differences during today's combat class. Kaya shifts his posture immediately, offering a polite apology to instructor Margaret and letting her know he is already on his way. Anderson mutters under his breath, calling Kaya a show-off as he walks away, but the blonde youth promises they will settle things during training. Margaret scans the crowd, locking her gaze directly onto Road, who continues acting with complete indifference. Later on, Road heads to instructor Margaret's private office, and she asks straightforwardly if the boy needs anything. Without beating around the bush, Road asks if he could receive a special waiver to sit out of that afternoon's practical combat class. Margaret smirks, playfully teasing the boy by suggesting he simply wants to avoid trouble or hide his true strength from his peers. Road merely takes in the instructor's teasing with a completely unbothered expression, showing zero patience for the topic. Margaret remarks that he certainly didn't come all the way here just to ask for a pass, and the boy smiles, admitting she caught him red-handed. Road gets straight to the point, asking the instructor if she happens to have heard of a legendary relic known as the Tier of the Dead. Margaret confirms she knows of the Tier of the Dead, an ancient item of immense power locked inside the Academy's vault because no one knows how to use it. Intrigued by the boy's sudden interest, she asks point-blank if he is trying to claim that mysterious ancient artifact. Road looks directly at the instructor, giving a firm and decisive confirmation. Margaret apologizes, explaining that, unfortunately, she lacks the authority to pull such a prized treasure from the vault. The MC wonders if even she lacks that clearance, but the instructor quickly reveals that everything hinges on one condition. She promises to introduce him to an influential veteran professor if Road participates in the afternoon combat training and demonstrates his true power to her. Road thinks to himself just how sharp and calculating this instructor truly is. With few options left to get what he needs, the MC agrees to the terms and accepts taking part in the practical class. Later, all the students gather in the massive training gymnasium to kick off the day's physical exercises. In the center of the gym, young Eleanor Ashblade goes through her warm-up stretches, wearing comfortable athletic attire. The boys whisper among themselves, charmed by her beauty, noting she hails from a mysterious clan that even Kaya respects. Just then, the students spot Kaya walking in her direction, gossiping that the rumors about him having a crush on Eleanor seem to be true. Kaya greets her politely, asking in a friendly manner how her grandfather has been doing lately. Eleanor thanks him with proper manners, replying with a pleasant smile that her grandfather is recovering very well. Suddenly, she spots Rode entering the gymnasium, looking thoroughly surprised to recognize her master there. Eleanor completely disregards Kaya's presence, eagerly turning around to head over toward the MC. Sensing she was about to call out to him loudly, Rode gives a discreet shushing gesture with his finger over his lips. She catches the hint immediately, covering her own mouth to avoid giving away her strong connection to the boy. Kaya is left in absolute shock, realizing he was completely brushed off by the girl in favor of another student. He glares at Rode from across the room with intense fury, wondering who that insignificant nobody is to make Eleanor leave him hanging. Suddenly, a thunderous crash echoes loudly through the gym, startling everyone in the room. Anderson storms forward through the area, yelling that Kaya is going to pay dearly for mocking him earlier that morning. Kaya cracks his knuckles with an annoyed grin, accepting the challenge instantly, stating he is already in a foul mood and will gladly blow off some steam. Meanwhile, one of Anderson's lackeys approaches Rode, who is sitting quietly on a bench in the corner. The brawny thug brings up that Rode also got in Kaya's way earlier, threatening the boy to get up and take a beating. A large crowd of students begins gathering around the ring to watch the anticipated duel between Anderson and Kaya. The academy's combat instructor steps in to oversee the match, stating he couldn't care less about the personal feud between the two nobles. However, he firmly warns that this is a strictly physical combat arena and the use of any magic is completely banned. Anderson smirks with malicious confidence, asking for the green light to fight, boasting he is just as skilled in brawling as he is with magic. The instructor asks if Kaya accepts the match conditions, and the blonde youth confirms without hesitation that he is ready to go. Anderson mockingly warns that his rival asked for this, telling him not to complain about the beatdown he's about to receive. The two rivals take their positions in the center of the ring under everyone's watchful eyes, while Anderson keeps taunting his opponent. Anna and Claire push through the crowd to get a clear view of the clash about to unfold between the two. Claire questions her friend's faith in Anderson, and Anna nervously admits that Kaya studied military combat techniques under his brother. Anderson lunges forward with blistering speed and a wild look, eager to knock his rival's teeth out with brute force. In contrast, Kaya stays entirely calm and locked in, settling into a flawless combat stance. Anderson throws a heavy punch, but the blonde youth effortlessly slips past the strike with sharp precision. Seizing the wide opening left by his opponent's wild swing, Kaya prepares a swift, crushing overhead counter. With a single precise and devastating strike, Anderson is slammed violently into the floorboards, producing a thunderous boom. The female students scream and cheer wildly over the rapid victory, raving about how strong and remarkably skilled Kaya is. A blushing Anna tells Claire that Kaya is incredibly handsome, strong, and wealthy, calling him the true Prince Charming of her dreams. Kaya looks down on his fallen opponent with disdain, coldly telling him he should just throw in the towel since he isn't on his level. The blonde youth demands an immediate apology right then and there if he wants his disrespect forgiven before the whole class. Anderson spits blood onto the floor in blind fury, refusing to accept defeat, screaming for them to go at it one more time. Blindsided by hatred and completely ignoring the arena's rules, the boy lunges to throw a cheap shot punch straight at his opponent's back. Kaya senses the cowardly attack from behind, and without showing an ounce of worry, decides to shut it down once and for all. With terrifying agility, the blonde youth delivers a brutal spinning kick that connects flush with Anderson's jaw, sending him flying across the room. The surrounding students stand in total shock, witnessing the heir of the prestigious Rune family get completely humiliated before everyone in the ring. Watching the entire scene from afar, Margaret takes in the end of the bout with a serious, calculating expression on her face. Meanwhile, Anderson's henchman points at Rode, warning that the MC will soon be on his knees begging for mercy the exact same way. Anderson's thug cracks his knuckles arrogantly, thinking that even after reincarnating, he still has to deal with obnoxious bullies. He throws a violent punch straight at the MC, barking that the boy should never dare cross their path again. Rode recalls that in his past life he solved every problem with his undead legions, rarely ever needing to fight with his bare hands. However, he makes it clear that doesn't mean he doesn't know how to brawl, noting he doesn't even need to borrow his summons experience for this. In the blink of an eye, the hulking brute is completely overwhelmed, realizing in horror that he is no match for the boy's physical mastery. Kaya spins around in surprise upon hearing a massive crash, watching Anderson's thug get hurled violently across the arena. The brute collides with the gym wall with a deafening impact, carving a massive crack right through the stone structure. He collapses completely unconscious to the floor, leaving a trail of dust and rubble under the stunned gazes of the entire class. Even Anderson, who was still sprawled on the ground, is left entirely speechless by the monstrous physical strength shown by the Morris heir. Instructor Margaret's eyes widen in sheer astonishment, thoroughly impressed by what she just witnessed. Claire and Anna watch the scene with their jaws on the floor, barely able to believe that it was truly Rode who delivered that absurd strike. Rode simply stands in place with complete tranquility, looking as though he didn't exert a single ounce of effort in the exchange. The MC thinks to himself that he tried his best to hold back, but genuinely didn't expect his opponent to be so fragile. Kaya walks over to the knocked-out brawler, foaming at the mouth, taking in the severe damage dealt by just a single punch. With slow, deliberate steps, the blonde youth approaches Rode, asking in an intimidating tone if he is truly the heir of House Morris. Kaya questions whether it was really necessary to use such extreme violence during a simple physical training bout between classmates. Rode coldly replies that his rival doesn't need to stress, since he went easy on him and the guy will be completely fine. The MC adds that Kaya is the very last person in the room with any right to lecture anyone about excessive force in training. Kaya turns utterly furious at the sharp response, glaring at him as a terrifying, ominous aura begins to flare up around his body. In a panic, Anna warns Claire that Rode just provoked the worst possible opponent and is guaranteed to get completely crushed now. The students whisper in fear at Kaya's brewing fury, wondering how a failure from House Morris had the nerve to challenge him like that. Eleanor covers her mouth, but she is secretly worried that Rode might end up shattering Kaya to pieces if a real fight breaks out. Margaret watches everything from a distance with a smirk, eager to see what the boy will do to claim the coveted tear of the dead. Kaya's energy surges so intensely around his frame that even the student standing far back can clearly feel the heavy pressure. The youths wonder if he's about to unleash his secret physical technique, which is rumored to hit as hard as real magic even without casting mana. He charges in with everything he has, unleashing his Iron Crusher punch, focusing all the raw power of his body into a direct strike. His speed is so blinding that the students realize he was merely toying with Anderson, doubting an ordinary human could move that fast without magic. Seeing the MC standing completely still without making a move, the crowd screams in panic, assuming the Morris heir is about to be wiped out. Kaya's massive fist tears relentlessly toward the boy's face, threatening to blast through anything in its way. With unbelievable ease, Rode raises a single hand and stops Kaya's devastating blow with a crisp, solid snap. Kaya is left in absolute shock upon seeing that his strike, potent enough to shatter solid stone, was halted so effortlessly. Spooked by the opponent's mysterious power, the blonde youth yanks his arm back and leaps away to reset the distance. Kaya refuses to believe that his lifelong military training is completely useless against someone he considered a total failure at the academy. Rode scoffs, commenting that if Anderson had taken a hit like that, he would have spent months recovering in a hospital bed. A few students try to make excuses, claiming Kaya held back his full power so he wouldn't severely injure his classmate. Tuning out the whispers from the crowd, Kaya begins gathering an even greater pool of energy around his right fist. He charges forward again, unleashing his chain fist barrage, throwing a rapid, violent flurry of consecutive punches. A literal storm of brutal, high-speed strikes rains down toward the boy, covering almost every inch of space in front of him. While dodging with smooth, effortless movements, Rode thinks to himself that since Kaya is strong, he shouldn't be too fragile. One of Kaya's heavy punches finally appears to connect solidly with the MC's frame amidst the relentless barrage. The force causes the boy to slide back several meters across the ring, kicking up a cloud of dust to the cheers and applause of the crowd. Realizing his opponent can take a hit, Rode decides he can finally dial up his own output a bit for this clash. The boys in the crowd cheer wildly, yelling for Kaya to finish off the arrogant MC once and for all. However, the MC plants his feet firmly on the wooden floorboards, proving that the impact didn't even faze him in the slightest. With absolute cool, Rode brushes the dust off his uniform and sarcastically asks if that punch was really the best his rival had to offer. Kaya stumbles back in horror, breaking into a cold sweat as he sees the boy emerge without a single scratch after taking his ultimate long-trained strike. Road warns with a chilling, dominant glare that after absorbing so many hits, it is finally his turn to go on the offensive. Seeing the boy prepare his counter, Eleanor covers her eyes, worried about the massive devastation her master is about to unleash. While he preferred to keep a low profile at the academy, Road knows he needs to make a statement right now to secure the Tear of the Dead. The boy blasts forward like a bolt of lightning, throwing a devastating punch that rips through the gymnasium air, kicking up a massive shockwave. Road's monstrous punch charges clean toward Kaya, who has zero time to react against the MC's blinding speed. Kaya's eyes widen in absolute panic. The exact fraction of a second he realizes he is about to take the hit with no way to defend himself. Under the crushing impact of the blow, the blonde youth is violently blasted backward, sailing through the gymnasium air at high speed. He crashes into the wooden bleachers with terrifying force, smashing through everything on impact and kicking up an enormous plume of dust. Kaya collapses completely knocked out and battered, wearing a look of total defeat after taking just a single punch from Road. Anna is completely at a loss, wondering in total shock how a nobody like Road managed to take down the mighty undefeated Kaya. Claire watches the boy with a serious gaze, realizing his stunning victory over the mercenaries at the tavern was definitely no fluke. Several female students rush over in a panic to help Kaya, while the rest of the class loudly accuses Road of fighting dirty and using excessive force. They angrily shout that the blonde youth was trying not to hurt Road, claiming that in a real magic duel, the Morris heir would never stand a chance. The crowd demands that Road apologize immediately, hurling insults at him for being cast out of his own noble house due to a lack of basic decency. Road merely listens in silence, thinking that in his past life, he would have already commanded his undead legion to wipe out these fools. Suddenly, Eleanor storms into the center of the ring, shouting at the top of her lungs for everyone to shut their mouths and stop talking nonsense. The MC looks over out of the corner of his eye, surprised by the sudden outburst and commanding tone of the young Ashblade heiress. She points her finger furiously, demanding to know who they think they are to judge the actions and impressive strength of young Master Road. She argues that if Kaya's strike had landed on anyone else, it would have been catastrophic, telling the weaklings to stop making fools of themselves. The students stand frozen, whispering in confusion over why such a high-ranking noble lady is stepping up to defend the supposed Morris failure. Completely ignoring the chatter around them, she firmly takes the MC's hand to pull him out of there as quickly as possible. She tells him they should leave immediately and not waste another second arguing with insignificant people like them. Under the hateful glares of the crowd, Eleanor leads the boy away as the two calmly walk toward the exit of the training gym. Kaya regains consciousness in severe pain, muttering the name Road Morris with burning hatred in his chest over the public humiliation. Meanwhile, Instructor Margaret watches the crowd disperse from a distance, maintaining a poised stance and a sharp, calculating look. She smiles with satisfaction upon confirming her theories about Road's true strength, deciding she can now introduce him to the veteran academy professor. In an upscale hallway, Road walks alongside Eleanor, casually asking if her sudden outburst won't cause any issues for her. He points out that the Ashblade family maintains strong ties with Kaya's allies, asking if this won't hurt her house's business connections. Eleanor brushes off the concern, stating with contempt that she never liked that spoiled brat or his arrogant family anyway. She adds firmly that House Ashblade answers to him now, vowing to cut ties with anyone her master dislikes. Road looks at her, caught off guard by her intense loyalty, asking one more time if she is completely sure it's fine to act like that. She smiles cheerfully, explaining that her grandfather's recovery made the family strong enough to not fear any kind of trouble. Road pulls the dark mana stone from his pocket and mentions he needs a favor from her family, leaving the girl amazed by the ominous aura. He asks them to stay alert since someone is using that energy in a dangerous plot, and Eleanor readily agrees to place her house at his service. That very night, Kaya's room sits steeped in a quiet, shadowy gloom fueled by raw frustration. Holding a magical communication tool, Kaya desperately reaches out for his older brother's help following the incident. He angrily explains that the failure of House Morris publicly humiliated and dismantled him right in front of young Eleanor Ashblade. Kaya adds that the two appear extremely close, arguing that their prestigious families should never tolerate an insult of this magnitude. On the other end of the line, the older brother listens intently, coldly replying that he understands the situation completely. He mentions that a highly dangerous operative named Rennie will be passing through the region, promising to have him pay the boy a special visit. Surprised, Kaya asks if he is referring to the legendary assassin known throughout the Empire as the Direwolf, and his brother confirms it. Kaya bursts into a sinister laugh, celebrating that with this legendary assassin on the job, that cursed Road Morris will definitely be erased from the world. While sinister schemes are plotted in the dark, the door to a private office inside the academy opens quietly. Road steps into Instructor Margaret's personal quarters, calling out to her calmly as she looks out the window at the scenery. Margaret turns around, praising the boy's combat performance, thinking with satisfaction that her hunch about him taking down the knight was spot on. Road flashes an innocent smile and plays dumb, claiming from behind his shoulder that he only pushed himself that hard for the precious tear of the dead. The instructor reveals that the relic belongs to an eccentric veteran scholar, telling the boy to follow her since a prodigy like him will surely impress the man. While leading the boy down the long stone corridors, she playfully warns that the old professor has quite a prickly personality. The two enter the facilities of the Academy's Magic Research Institute, an ancient laboratory packed with potions and glowing glass vials. Margaret introduces the eccentric Professor Gustav, an elderly man in a dark robe stirring a large potion cauldron with a small wand. She tries to introduce Road, but the grumpy scholar snaps back, asking not to be disturbed in the middle of his critical research. Margaret leans in close to Road, whispering in a low voice that the tear of the dead he desires so much belongs entirely to that old researcher. She explains that the professor is highly eccentric, warning that whether he hands over the prized artifact or not rests entirely on Road's shoulders. Looking toward the workstation, Road spots a black cat surrounded by glowing green magic circles, deducing that the man is researching resurrection magic. Gustav pours a glowing yellow potion over the feline, attempting to guide its soul back into its physical body once and for all. He focuses his gaze on the creature with great anticipation, eagerly waiting for the slightest sign of life or bodily movement. Suddenly, the resurrection magic circle fails catastrophically, triggering a massive explosion of green lightning that engulfs the area. Margaret screams in fear for the professor while trying to shield herself from the violent magical fallout caused by the backlash. Gustav collapses, devastated by the failure, insisting that the ancient text guaranteed life energy would stabilize the soul fragments. She thinks to herself that the old professor is obsessed with resurrection magic, and that, despite studying the soul for so long, he hasn't made any real progress. Road reflects that this world's understanding of the soul is far too shallow, which explains why a true necromancer has never emerged. The old man examines the potion vial thoughtfully, wondering in confusion if he somehow messed up the recommended dosage. He pours even more magical liquid, hoping that a lack of life energy was the real reason behind the failed attempt. The experiment blows up again even more violently, shattering the glass windows and filling the entire laboratory with green smoke. Road notices the glaring mistake and thinks that trying to use life energy on an expired soul is like trying to set solid ice on fire. Gustav shouts in extreme frustration over the new failure, agonizing over where he went wrong after following the texts to the letter. The MC decides to step in and calmly suggests that the professor stop using those potions infused with life energy. Gustav turns angrily toward the kid and snaps, saying that just because Margaret spoke highly of him doesn't give him the right to meddle in his research. The old master throws it in Road's face that he hasn't even studied basic soul theory and knows nothing about resurrection magic. He dismisses the MC's presence, telling him to come back another time and ordering him not to disturb his experiments any further. Unfazed, Road calmly explains that life has already left that vessel, and the energy being used is acting like poison to the little creature's soul. The professor is outraged by the kid's words, yelling that water from the fountain of life can heal any wound and could never be poisonous. Road tells him to accept that the creature is gone and suggests using ancient grave soil in the formation, claiming that no one understands the beyond better than he does. Margaret panics at Road's boldness, calling him foolish for daring to contradict and boss around the short-tempered Professor Gustav. However, the young necromancer's words make old Gustav freeze and reconsider this unconventional approach to the departed. Wasting no time, Gustav decides to test the advice and begins sprinkling some ancient grave soil over the ritual circle. The lifeless body of the black cat begins to float gently under the influence of the stabilized green energy radiating from the mystic circle. Gustav's eyes widen with overwhelming joy, and he tremblingly asks himself if he is finally on the verge of success. Margaret watches in utter disbelief, repeating the word success in awe as she sees the cat hovering amidst the stable spiritual energy. The MC thinks that if the feline had passed away recently it might have worked, but since its soul has already dispersed, the process is completely different. The young necromancer discreetly focuses his chilly energy, knowing full well that only a true master of the departed could pull this off. With the supreme authority of the undead monarch, he secretly commands the creature's wandering soul to return to its vessel immediately. A powerful surge of pure spiritual energy flows with incredible speed straight toward the motionless body of the little feline on the table. In a split second, the feline's glowing green eyes snap open, confirming the absolute success of the young man's command. The black cat stands up and meows normally, though Rode knows this artificially summoned soul will only last for 7 days at most. Gustav and Margaret stand there with their jaws dropped in complete shock at the unbelievable resurrection that just unfolded right before their eyes. The elderly scholar grabs Rode by the shoulders in extreme excitement, begging to know the young man's name and where he learned such fantastic theory. Margaret smiles with pride and happily introduces him to her colleague, presenting him as young Rode Morris. Gustav cheers ecstatically, declaring that Rode has shattered the core doctrines of the Archmages and calling him an absolute magical prodigy after such a feat. Margaret is utterly stunned to see the respected Professor Gustav praise and admire the boy with such genuine enthusiasm. The old master asks Rode to share what else he knows, and the young man humbly replies that he simply views the realm of the departed from a different perspective. The old man recalls something important and mentions that Margaret told him the young master came looking for the famous Tear of the Departed. Without further delay, he pulls a gorgeous blue amulet containing the legendary spiritual artifact from his pocket and shows it off with great pride. With a sharp and mysterious look, the professor states that the artifact will belong to Rode if he agrees to do just one small favor for him. The elderly professor hands the item to the young man and reveals that the sole condition is for Rode to become his personal assistant. Gustav promises that as his assistant, he will provide Rode with any rare materials he needs so they can rewrite the history of resurrection magic together. Rode lets out a subtle smile, realizing this partnership will grant him unrestricted access to the rare and valuable resources he desperately needs. Margaret raises a worried objection since the boy is just a newcomer, but Gustav tells her to be quiet, claiming she fails to recognize true genius. Margaret huffs in frustration at the stubborn old man's rude brush-off as he completely ignores her presence. Rode graciously accepts the proposal and expresses his gratitude, saying it will be a tremendous honor to work alongside a scholar of his caliber. The young man thinks to himself with satisfaction that having an official title and his own private lab will make executing his necromancy plans much easier. With a warm smile, Gustav hands over a beautiful golden key and tells the young master he is free to use the facilities whenever he likes. The elderly professor shows off the grand laboratory and officially proclaims that from this moment on, Rode is his chief assistant. Margaret watches the whole scene in disbelief, not knowing whether to laugh or cry at the fact that her own student has suddenly become her colleague. 2 days go by, and the story picks up at the luxurious Crystal Tavern during a calm and quiet night. Sitting comfortably in the lounge, Kaya calmly sips a glass of red wine while waiting for his guest to arrive. The tavern waiter approaches and informs him that the man he has been waiting for just got there, and Kaya tells him to let him in. The door slowly opens, and an intimidating shadowy figure wearing a dark cloak steps into the tavern's private VIP room. It is the feared professional operative Rennie, known for his cold demeanor and surgical precision on his lethal assignments. Kaya stands up eagerly and welcomes the operative, remarking that he has heard plenty about his fearsome reputation as the dire wolf. Rennie blows a cloud of smoke from his cigarette and coldly tells him to skip the flattery, asking straight up what the kid wants from him. Kaya is deeply annoyed by the operative's disrespectful tone, but he swallows his anger so he won't ruin the plan. He hands over a heavy pouch filled with a gold coin deposit and the target's dossier, promising to pay the remainder once the job is finished. Kaya reveals Rode Morris's picture and profile, describing him as worthless trash from a fallen family who attends the academy. Rennie scoffs mockingly upon finding out that a high-ranking family heir hired him just to take down a broke student from the countryside. The operative states dismissively that he has no time for amateur games and that someone so insignificant isn't worth the effort. Kaya insists, pointing out that Rode managed to get close to the Ashblade heiress and stresses that this is also a direct order from his older brother. Upon hearing the name of the mighty House of Ashblade, Rennie's expression shifts immediately as he realizes the true gravity of the situation. Since it is a direct command from his brother, Rennie takes the elimination contract, but demands a final payment of 5,000 gold coins. Kaya agrees to the sum without hesitation, shouting with pure spite that all he cares about is getting rid of Rode Morris once and for all. Kaya asks for a clean job with no loose ends, and the operative reassures him that true professionals have standards and never expose their clients. He turns around with a sinister, cocky grin, arrogantly claiming that he is the best in the business and never botches an assignment. Kaya whispers with burning hatred that since Rode humiliated him in front of Eleanor and the entire school, tonight will definitely be his last. Under the cover of night, Rennie lurks atop a rooftop, keeping a close eye on the surroundings of the Seven Cities Magic Academy. Adjusting his dark combat mask, he recalls from the intel that the target usually passes through this area. The operative stakes out a dark, quiet alleyway that Road walks through every single day on his way back to the student dorms. Rennie flashes a malicious grin under his mask as he spots the boy walking casually, celebrating that his payout is practically in the bag. Road strolls along thinking about how energetic Professor Gustav is and how their research has left him no time to use the tear of the departed. Suddenly, the young master stops in his tracks and glances sideways coldly, instantly sensing trouble in the air. Road picks up on an arrogant assassin who isn't even hiding his hostile presence, noting that the intruder is remarkably powerful. At frightening speed, a red streak tears through the dark alley straight toward the young man's neck with lethal intent. He dodges effortlessly, wondering if this operative was sent by the mysterious mage from the forest whose seal was broken. Road casually stretches his arm, concluding that whoever sent him doesn't really matter, since he will pull the answer out of him himself. From above, the assassin mocks the young man's calm attitude and sarcastically remarks that Road picked a lovely alley to be his final resting place. The MC merely gives a chilling, intimidating look toward the enemy lurking on the roof. Rennie is infuriated by the kid's nerve to stare at him like that, feeling deeply insulted by such insolence. Screaming in rage, the assassin leaps from the roof toward the MC, his claws glowing crimson with deadly magic. He executes his secret shadow strike technique, unleashing a flurry of slashing red energy arcs across the alley. A loud, booming impact reverberates through the quiet passage, followed by the unsettling sound of crimson drops hitting the ground. Completely unbothered, Road catches the assassin's blade with his bare hand and coldly demands to know who sent him. Rennie is in utter shock seeing his lethal strike stopped barehanded by a mere kid, something he believed to be completely impossible. Without breaking a sweat, the MC snaps the enemy's weapon with raw finger strength and tosses it onto the ground of the dark alley. Gripped by panic and breaking into a cold sweat over the kid's absurd strength, the assassin leaps backward, trying to put distance between them. He wonders in terror if the young man is an intermediate archmage and frantically realizes he needs to escape immediately. He hits top speed, turning into a fast black blur trying to slip away through the shadows of the silent alleyway. Road watches the getaway attempt coldly and remarks that if the enemy refuses to talk nicely, he has plenty of ways to make him sing. Suddenly, the MC's chilly spiritual energy surges outward, spreading across the stone walls and ground of the alley. A massive, terrifying dark silhouette silently emerges from the shadows, directly in the path of the fleeing assassin. Rennie screams in panic as the gigantic, menacing skeletal creature towers before him, completely cutting off his only exit. The mighty summoned warrior raises its colossal weapon, ready to crush the opponent without showing an ounce of mercy. With a devastating, precise slash, the blow lands square on the assassin, who lets out a sharp shriek of agony as he is slammed into the ground. The armored warrior rests its colossal blade against the defeated enemy's neck, and Road asks if he is finally ready to talk. Battered and bleeding, the man screams frantically, demanding the MC let him go and threatening that his clan will come after him. Road points his chilly blade straight at the enemy's face, warning him coldly that if he keeps refusing to talk, he will suffer the consequences. Showing no mercy whatsoever, Road extends his glowing blue hand toward the immobilized assassin's face on the ground. He triggers his sinister necromancy technique known as memory echo, directly invading the defeated enemy's mind. Through the technique, Road clearly sees the tavern meeting, confirming that Kaya and his clan orchestrated the entire hit on him. He concludes with fierce anger that Kaya and House Shadowthorn have sealed their own fate by sending an assassin after him. Desperate, Rennie stammers and begs the boy to release him, threatening him with the overwhelming might of his leader, Lord Bruce. Road replies with complete detachment that his rival shouldn't worry, because it won't be long before House Shadowthorn is wiped off the map entirely. With a cruel smirk, he informs the assassin that his soul will serve as a rare, premium feast to nourish his summons. With a deafening roar, the young man summons Earthshaker, the massive skeletal beast that emerges imposing in the dark alley. Rennie screams in total horror as the skeletal monster's colossal maw opens before him, pleading for it to stay back. Left with zero chance of defense, the dreaded assassin is swallowed whole in one bite by the MC's terrifying, gigantic summon. The skeletal beast devours the novice archmage's body and soul, glowing intensely with a vibrant crimson hue of life force. Road knows their house is extremely powerful in the north and concludes he shouldn't rush, needing to wait for the opportune moment. Meanwhile, at the luxurious Crystal Tavern, Kaya sips his whiskey in complete comfort and relaxation, convinced everything went off without a hitch. He thinks to himself smugly that by now the assassin must have finished off-road, laughing at the thought that his rival will never cross his path again. The blonde young man orders invitations to be sent to all of his classmates for a grand victory party the following day. The next day, fancy invitations for Kaya's celebration banquet are handed out across the entire Seven Cities Magic Academy. Sitting lost in thought, Eleanor looks over the invitation and wonders in confusion what real reason Kaya could have for throwing such a sudden party. Suddenly she looks up and flashes a bright smile upon seeing her master, young Master Rode, strolling calmly down the hallway. She calls out to him cheerfully and rushes over to meet him, instantly forgetting all her previous doubts about Kaya's banquet. Rode notices the girl's puzzled expression and calmly asks if her concern is related to the paper in her hands. She shows him the envelope and explains that Kaya decided to throw a party for no apparent reason and ended up sending invitations to every student. Upon learning it's a banquet, Eleanor states firmly that she can't stand Kaya and has zero interest in attending his party. However, Rode cryptically suggests that she really should go, remarking with a smirk that he knows exactly what the celebration is about. She recalls in confusion that Kaya didn't even bother to invite Rode, and the MC chuckles, replying that of course he wouldn't get one. Eleanor laughs and figures the blonde guy is still salty over the beating he took during their previous sparring match, calling him a petty, spoiled brat. That evening, the Academy's luxurious grand hall is brilliantly lit, with numerous noble carriages arriving for Kaya's massive event. At the entrance of the banquet hall, security guards block the doors, demanding official invitations before letting any students inside. Dressed in a stunning blue gown, Eleanor presents her official noble invitation and firmly states that young Rode is her +1 for the evening. The guard nervously stammers upon recognizing the influential heiress of House Ashblade, knowing that turning away her guest would cause major trouble. Another guard quickly steps up and whispers quietly into his ear, tipping him off about the high-ranking nobility standing before them. The guard changes his tune immediately, bowing respectfully and welcoming Eleanor along with her special guest. Rode thanks her for getting him through the doors, and Eleanor chuckles, apologizing for the hassle caused by him not having an official invite. On the upper floor of the hall, the wooden doors of an upscale private lounge remain cracked open ever so slightly. Straightening his clothes in the mirror, Kaya asks anxiously if the assassin has returned, but his servant reports that he has been missing since last night. The henchman gulps and cautiously asks if there's any chance Rennie's covert mission might have failed. Kaya snaps in a furious outburst, telling him to shut up, arrogantly claiming that a famous elite operative would never fail against total trash. He orders the second half of the gold to be kept ready since the hitman could arrive any second, and rushes downstairs to greet the guests. The main ballroom glows with elegance, packed with smiling young nobles drinking and chatting under shimmering golden chandeliers. Kaya smirks devilishly, thinking that with Rode out of the picture, nothing will stop him from winning Eleanor over and seizing the Ashblade fortune. Anna and Claire chat across the room with glasses of wine, curiously wondering what amazing thing happened for Kaya to throw such a huge bash. Suddenly, Eleanor's breathtaking beauty captures everyone's attention in the room as she walks in wearing her elegant, shimmering blue gown. Kaya locks his eyes on her with desire, genuinely believing that the heiress of the mighty northern family will finally be his starting tonight. He approaches with a charming smile and offers her a glass of red wine, politely inviting her to share a toast with him. Eleanor refuses to take the drink and stares at him with pure coldness, turning down the invite without hesitation in front of everyone. Kaya is left totally embarrassed by the public rejection, but out of nowhere, a familiar, calm voice emerges from the shadows accepting the drink in her place. The blonde young man freezes completely upon recognizing that chilling voice, feeling a jolt of pure dread shoot straight down his spine. Rode steps forward, imposing from the shadows, holding a wine glass, sarcastically asking if he'd like to share a drink with him, sending Kaya into sheer panic. Overcome with shock and terror, Kaya trips over his own feet and falls flat on his backside in the banquet hall, knocking over bottles of wine. Shaking with fear, he points a finger at the boy and frantically screams, asking if he's a living person or a ghost coming back to haunt him. Rode simply advances slowly toward him with a chilling, calm gaze, sarcastically asking what Kaya genuinely thinks he is. Kaya stammers in despair, insisting in disbelief that the boy should be gone, and frantically demands to know where the operative Rennie is. Rode just looks at him thoughtfully and asks if he's referring to the elite hitman who tried to ambush him on the road. With total contempt, the young man tosses the broken pieces of Rennie's dagger onto the floor right in front of Kaya with a sharp metallic clatter. Kaya instantly recognizes the shattered weapon and realizes that the legendary operative actually failed his covert elimination mission. Gripped by overwhelming panic, he screams at the top of his lungs, demanding to know what the MC did to the elite assassin. Road locks eyes with him in a cold, deadly stare, giving off a dark and terrifying presence that paralyzes everyone in the ballroom. Eleanor recognizes the name and remarks in surprise that she knows very well that was the alias of the Empire's legendary contract operative. She crosses her arms and sternly demands that Kaya immediately explain his secret connection to the hitman. Completely cornered and breaking into a cold sweat, the blonde young man stammers frantically, claiming the whole thing is just a big misunderstanding. Eleanor refuses to buy his shameless lies, expressing utter disgust that he could sink so low as to put a hit out on someone. Kaya points a trembling finger toward the MC, begging once more for a chance to explain the whole situation to the girl. However, Eleanor snaps furiously and tells him to shut his mouth, refusing to hear another word of his pathetic excuses. She adds that she now sees the real reason behind this sudden party, since the coward was secretly planning to celebrate Rhodes' demise. Eleanor solemnly declares that she has already spoken with her grandfather, and as of this moment, House Ashblade is cutting all ties with them. Seeing his family's alliance shattered, Kaya grits his teeth in pure rage, blaming Rhodes entirely for this massive humiliation. Without caring in the slightest about his anger, Eleanor turns her back and calmly tells Rhodes they should leave the banquet at once. The students gossip in complete shock, wondering how Eleanor could break such a vital noble alliance just to stand up for Rhodes. Claire watches the young man walk away with a puzzled look, quietly admitting to herself that he doesn't seem anything like the old Rhodes she used to know. Under the quiet moonlight, Rhodes and Eleanor walk calmly away from the banquet hall, leaving all the chaos far behind. Eleanor vents angrily about what a coward Kaya was, remarking that those fools could never begin to fathom his true power. Rhodes thoughtfully considers that the operative was far too seasoned to be sent by Kaya alone, deducing that his entire clan is involved. He figures House Shadowthorn actually intended to strike at House Ashblade itself, and his interference ended up ruining their scheme. Eleanor smirks sarcastically, realizing those fools genuinely thought they could take over her family just because her grandfather was unwell. She thanks him sincerely for healing her grandfather and promises with absolute conviction that her clan will follow any order he gives. Faced with that pledge of total loyalty, the MC remains thoughtful for a few seconds before making his decision. With a terrifyingly cold look, Rhodes reveals his true desire to see House Shadowthorn wiped off the map as soon as possible. Meanwhile, inside the imposing and gloomy estate of the Shadowthorn family, heavy tension begins to fill the quiet corridors. In the darkened study, Lord Bruce answers the communication device and coldly asks what his younger brother wants. Kaya frantically reveals that Rennie failed the mission, and since Rhodes showed up very much alive at the party, the operative must have been taken down by the kid. Bruce flatly rejects the idea, claiming the operative he picked was far too formidable to be defeated by some rookie kid. Kaya sobs in despair on his bed, screaming that the Ashblades cut ties with them and blaming the MC for ruining his entire life. On the other end, the older brother finally grasps the severity of the situation and coldly states that he will return to the city immediately. Hearing his older brother's response, the blonde young man sits up surprised in bed with a flicker of hope returning to his eyes. Kaya flashes a cruel, twisted grin, convinced that with his older brother's return, the MC will finally be crushed without mercy. 2 days pass, and the story moves to the high-tech research laboratories of the prestigious Seven Cities Magic Academy. While working, Rhodes wonders why Kaya has been so quiet, especially since House Ashblade has definitely made moves against his family by now. He knows Kaya is far too proud to take the humiliation lying down and tries to figure out what his rival is plotting in the shadows. Suddenly, Professor Gustav rushes excitedly into the lab holding a notebook, announcing that the three of them need to head out right away. Margaret asks where they are going, and the old man explains that since his research has progressed so much, he needs to restock rare materials at the magic market. Margaret explains to Rhodes that the magic market is an exclusive mystical trade hub, accessible only to influential or powerful figures. She smiles warmly and mentions that since Rhodes is now the professor's official assistant, this will be a fantastic opportunity to broaden his horizons. The MC thinks in surprise that he had no idea such an important and exclusive trade hub existed in the north during his past life. The mystical carriage speeds down the stone road, carrying the group toward the bustling and famous city of Nate. Nate is the commercial heart of the north, where merchants from across the region gather and where anything can be bought if you have enough coin. Because of this, mages from all over the empire travel there in search of rare items, turning the city into a massive and chaotic, mystical marketplace. Rode walks right behind Margaret and Gustav, curiously taking in the imposing architecture of the main artifact trade hall. At the entrance of the establishment, a long-bearded clerk's eyes widen as he recognizes the famous and illustrious client who just stepped inside. He flashes a warm smile and rushes over to welcome the respected Academy scholar, bowing with absolute politeness. The young man notices the warm reception and figures Professor Gustav must be a frequent and highly respected patron at this mystical market. Right after, the chief manager of the magic market politely approaches, greeting the group with a welcoming smile. Gustav tells him to skip the pleasantries and take him straight inside, as he has zero interest in the cheap trinkets being sold out front. The manager agrees right away, looking slightly nervous, and asks the group to follow him. As they enter a massive showroom packed with displayed artifacts, the manager invites them to make themselves at home. The professor waves off the ordinary items with a flick of his hand, stating he has no interest in any of that common junk. Gustav demands materials overflowing with vital energy, as well as items tied to the departed, like ancient grave soil, and the employee nods in agreement. Rode spots a glowing bone on display, and thinks it's just a swamp alligator humerus, somewhat uncommon, but nothing truly impressive. He closes his eyes in disappointment, thinking the market isn't quite as incredible as people claimed, since there is nothing truly groundbreaking around. The young man reflects that a genuine magical artifact needs the power to achieve the impossible, the kind of treasure countless men would fight tooth and nail over. Margaret and Rode overhear an argument nearby, where one man shouts that he spotted the vital crystal first, while the other retorts that he hasn't paid for it yet. Margaret asks who that man is, and the manager explains that it is Professor Ball, Gustav's lifelong rival who constantly squabbles with him over resources. Rode looks at the large, glowing green ore and wonders if that thing could truly be a vital crystal. The MC realizes right away that it's nothing more than crystalline wind ore that elves use to deceive buyers. Annoyed, Gustav calls his rival an old vulture and asks if he really needs to swipe every single item that catches his eye. Ball smirks mockingly and replies that it's first come, first served, questioning how Gustav can accuse him of theft when he hasn't even paid. Gustav is furious at the taunt and grits his teeth, at a loss for how to fire back at his obnoxious rival. Rode steps forward and calmly lets the professor know that the object is not a vital crystal, but merely disguised wind ore. Surprised by the revelation, Gustav asks if the young man is absolutely certain it's crystalline wind ore. Rode keeps his calm expression and confirms with total confidence that he is sure of what he is saying. Gustav figures that in that case, the stone isn't worth the 3,000 gold coins being charged, and decides to let his rival buy it so he can take the loss. The professor turns to the shop manager and asks who that supposed vital crystal currently belongs to. Feeling rather awkward, the clerk explains that according to house rules, the item belongs to whoever pays first. Ball shows off the glowing green stone with a triumphant grin, gloating that he just completed the payment and the item is officially his. Hearing that, Gustav breaks into a broad smile and declares that he couldn't be happier with the news. Both Ball and the store manager are left completely baffled by the professor's cheerful and unexpected reaction. Ball questions what that means, finding it suspicious that his rival is smiling after losing the item and sensing that something is off. Gustav replies sarcastically that he is just happy for his rival, congratulating him on dropping 3,000 coins on a piece of common wind ore. Ball's eyes pop open, and he lets out a sound of pure disbelief upon hearing the old man's claim. The man bursts out laughing and asks if his rival has lost his mind completely, or if he's just making up nonsense because he can't handle losing. He points to the stone's bright radiance and tells everyone to feel the pure, vital energy, asserting that this is no ordinary mineral for weak mages. The manager nervously steps in as well, asking Gustav to drop the accusation since their appraisers are exceptionally strict. Under pressure from everyone, Gustav goes quiet, but Rode calmly tells the professor not to worry. The boy points with absolute certainty and reiterates that the object in Ball's hand is nothing more than wind ore. Ball and the manager scowl in deep annoyance at the young man's boldness. Ball glares at the young assistant with a lethal look, furiously demanding to know who he thinks he is to make such a claim. The clerk also demands the boy watch his words, warning that being with Gustav doesn't give him the right to slander the establishment. Gustav stands up for the young man, declaring that Rode is his assistant and possesses more knowledge than he does himself, telling Ball to shut his mouth. Ball scoffs, saying Gustav has completely lost his marbles by making a mere student his chief assistant. He holds out the glowing stone and challenges the boy to explain that potent green aura and prove his ridiculous claim. Faced with Ball's challenge, the young man steps forward to begin his demonstration. Road explains that the stone gives off a vital aura because of an elven illusion, and draining that energy is all it takes to expose the fake. The boy asks if they have ancient graveyard soil in stock, as a handful would be enough to consume the energy and break the charm. The manager stammers and confirms they have the material, and the boy directs him to bring it over immediately. A large metal bowl containing the ancient gray soil is placed on the counter. Road challenges the man to drop the stone inside to watch the truth come out within 1 minute, asking if he wants to take the test. Ball angrily accepts the challenge, warning that if it really is a vital crystal, both Gustav and his genius assistant will have to apologize in public. The glowing green stone is dropped straight onto the gray soil of the grave. Instantly, thick green smoke begins rising from the bowl, lighting up the entire room. Ball points at the reaction, laughing triumphantly, and shouts that the vital aura is still overwhelmingly strong. Seeing that the glow didn't fade immediately, the professor begins breaking into a cold sweat out of sheer worry. Even Margaret grows anxious and lets out a worried murmur, seeing that the test doesn't seem to be working. Margaret whispers to Road, asking if he is sure, since the professor is very proud and apologizing publicly would be an unbearable humiliation. Road tells the instructor not to worry, calmly stating that everything will unfold in about 10 seconds. Ball mocks them, calling everyone fools and stating that not even elves could forge a wind ore into a vital crystal of that quality. Suddenly, the shop manager panics and screams, completely unable to comprehend how this is happening. The green smoke begins to clear, revealing the stone losing all of its radiance at an alarming rate. Margaret is stunned to see the plain wind ore, while the bystanders wonder which appraiser made such an embarrassing blunder. The customers begin gossiping about someone paying 3,000 gold coins for junk that isn't worth a single silver coin. Ball turns completely pale and grits his teeth, realizing he has been publicly humiliated and scammed in front of everyone. Absolutely livid, he yells at the manager, calling them all swindlers and asking how they dared to sell him such garbage. Gustav bursts into laughter and thanks Road for saving him from falling for that scam, mocking Ball's face as he takes the massive loss. In a fit of rage, the rival professor hurls the worthless stone violently onto the floor. He turns around, shouting one final parting threat, promising that this matter is far from over. As his rival storms off, the manager bows deeply before the group, offering his sincere apologies. With his eyes bloodshot with pure hatred, Ball mentally swears that he will definitely get even for this. Gustav celebrates cheerfully, remarking how satisfying it is to finally see his rival look so defeated after years of squabbling. The old man thanks Road and tells him that if he likes any material around here, he can take it because the lab will cover the entire tab. Gustav notes that he hopes not to run into another counterfeit item, and the manager tries to reassure him by saying it was just a terrible fluke. The experienced professor simply gives a suspicious huff and continues walking through the venue. The manager stands there tense and deep in thought, wondering how they made such a blunder and where such a brilliant young man came from to outsmart their appraisers. Outside the room, a man wearing a metal helmet and a hood watches the group from afar with ulterior motives. The fellow curses under his breath upon realizing the boy exposed his scam, knowing the ore's origin will now be investigated and wanting to take him out for it. He remembers that the kid also infuriated Professor Ball and begins plotting a way to use the professor to get rid of the boy. Meanwhile, Ball walks down the steps of the Grand Magic Market under the sunlight, still visibly shaken. He grumbles in frustration over the fact that his old rival managed to find such a sharp and clever assistant. The professor laments the financial loss and public humiliation he suffered, dreading becoming the laughingstock of his own academy. Suddenly, a voice calls out to him from behind, making him turn around looking quite confused. The mysterious man who was spying on the group slowly approaches Ball with a calm posture. Ball rudely asks if he's an employee of the market and demands to speak with a manager if he's here to offer some compensation. The stranger tells him to take it easy, assuring him that market management was also shocked and is already launching a serious investigation into the matter. The man smiles mischievously and reveals that the appraiser for that section has secretly met multiple times with Gustav's new assistant. Upon hearing that wild accusation, Ball's eyes go wide in total shock. The professor asks furiously if he is implying that the whole setup was staged on purpose just to play him for a fool. Playing innocent, the man says he doesn't want to jump to conclusions and is merely passing along what he heard in the hallways. The trickster continues planting seeds of doubt, commenting on how strange it is for a mere student to know everything when even a great professor was fooled. Ball lowers his head and lets out a dark, sinister chuckle fueled by pure spite. Ball agrees that everything adds up if the kid orchestrated the scheme, swearing he never imagined Gustav would pull off such an act. He looks closely at the employee and asks what his real motive was for coming to tell him this whole story directly. The man calmly replies that word of a scam spreading like that would be terrible for the market's business reputation. Ball concludes with a sinister look that the two of them share a common objective from this point onward. The fellow offers a subtle smirk and confirms without hesitation that they are on the exact same page. As he walks away through the bustling city center, Ball swears to himself that Gustav and his young assistant will pay dearly for this. With a vicious stare, the rival professor guarantees that both of them are about to find out what happens when you cross him. The scene shifts to a simpler, open-air district of Nate, where local commerce buzzes under the bright sunlight. From the shadows of the bazaar, a mysterious figure watches the crowd with a pleased grin. Meanwhile, Gustav, Rode, and Margaret continue casually browsing through the various street stalls of the mystic marketplace. The elderly professor bends down at one of the modest stalls set up on the ground to inspect some peculiar plants and objects. He inspects a volcanic core up close and grumbles in disappointment, seeing that it is completely drained and nothing more than a magicless shell. Next, he looks at a pot of dried plants and tosses it aside, noting it's just deteriorated nightmare ivy with zero commercial value. Rode observes the mediocre selection around them, thinking to himself that it's unlikely he'll find anything worthwhile today. However, just as he is about to give up, the boy suddenly stops as he senses a strong, mysterious surge of life magic coming from nearby. Rode instantly recognizes the item as bloodwood, an exceptionally rare raw material formed only under the most extreme conditions. He notes that it looks petrified from age, but the vital energy stored inside is immense, making it perfect for stabilizing souls in life magic experiments. Yet, as he glances to the side, the boy notices something even more astonishing and lets out a quiet gasp. He spots a bizarre decorative skull on display at the stall, featuring a strange purple gem embedded directly into its forehead. Rode realizes it is an extremely rare fragment of nether ore hidden in the bone, ideal for taking his necromancy powers to the next level. Playing it cool, Rode points to the items and asks the merchant for the price, claiming he needs something to prop up wobbly tables in the lab. The merchant chuckles and explains that those northern tombstones are nothing special, just sturdy rocks that appraisers find worthless. He then offers the stones for just 5 silver coins each, telling the buyer to pick whichever ones he likes. With a subtle smirk, the boy proposes taking that entire batch of ancient stones and bones for a total of 50 silver coins. Thinking he just made a great deal on a pile of junk, the vendor happily accepts the offer right away. The MC hands over the pouch containing the agreed silver coins, wrapping up the purchase in no time. As they get ready to head back, Margaret laments that the trip wasn't particularly fruitful or full of exciting discoveries. Rode hands the petrified wood to Gustav and explains that it is rare bloodwood, packed with vital energy for his research. The old man looks skeptically at the black rock and tells the boy he knows what bloodwood is and that this is just an ordinary stone. Keeping his composure, the young assistant calmly insists that the material is authentic, merely petrified by the passage of time. Intrigued by the claim, Gustav decides to channel a little mana to examine the object more closely. Right away, the professor's eyes go wide with shock as the rock blazes with an overwhelming bright crimson glow. Margaret's jaw drops at the brilliance, and she gasps at the incredibly dense life aura radiating from the piece. The elderly scholar can hardly believe what his own eyes are seeing at that moment. Moved by the unbelievable discovery, Gustav confirms out loud that it truly is genuine bloodwood. Meanwhile, Rode looks at the small piece of nether ore in his hands, already mapping out his next move. He smiles to himself, knowing that this small shard will be the key to drastically skyrocketing his combat prowess. Night falls over the lavish estate, settling total silence over the boy's private laboratory. Rode plans to use the ore to break through to novice mage, while using the tear of the departed to elevate Durand to the rank of advanced mage. The towering skeletal knight Durand materializes before his master, dropping to one knee in absolute loyalty. Rode tosses the glowing crystal toward his summon and orders him to use the artifact to reclaim his former strength. Durand accepts the command and crushes the crystal in his hand, absorbing all of the vast, shadowy energy released. A burst of blue flames and pure spectral energy completely envelops the skeletal warrior's frame. The MC watches the impressive evolution unfold as his servant becomes encased in a cocoon of bluish energy. Soon after, glowing fissures begin cracking across the energy cocoon with a thunderous roar. The cocoon shatters in a spectacular blast, sending a magical shockwave rippling through the entire room. Reconstructed and far more powerful than before, the black-armored knight with glowing eyes bows once again. Pleased, Rode compliments the warrior's new look, celebrating as he notices he has successfully reached the rank of advanced mage. With his servant's evolution complete, the young man grabs the nether ore shard to begin his own breakthrough. He shatters the purple gem, releasing a dense mist of mystical power that swirls around him instantly. A massive pillar of lightning and spiritual force envelops the boy, lifting him into the air at the center of the room. The young man channels the mana flow, realizing that Duran's evolution paired with the gem is producing an incredible effect. Thanks to this massive surge of energy, he easily shatters his bottleneck and breaks through to the rank of novice mage. The MC reflects that, with this new realm and an advanced rank guardian at his side, his security is fully guaranteed. He flashes a confident smirk, knowing he can now wield spells and combat techniques that were completely out of reach before. The following day, the carriage of the influential Shadowthorn family pulls up to the gates of their massive, imposing manor. A man in heavy combat boots steps down from the transport under the watchful eyes of the guards lined up at the entrance. Lord Bruce Shadowthorn strides forward with a cold, dead-serious expression, dressed in his upscale battle uniform. Kaya rushes excitedly to meet his older brother, breathing a sigh of relief upon seeing that he has finally returned. Bruce glares at him coldly, stating he already knows everything, and demanding answers for why Kaya got humiliated and caused the Ashblades to cut ties. Kaya tries to defend himself by claiming the rival is too strong, lamenting the hitman's disappearance, and complaining that the Ashblades are pulling out of deals. Bruce pauses, feeling intrigued, mentally questioning since when someone with that level of power showed up in the Northern Territories. Bruce clenches his black leather-gloved fist, declaring that it doesn't make the slightest difference who this kid is. With an unsettling manic stare, he asserts that the rival must be eliminated for disrupting their plans, since the entire North belongs to their family. He then calls his subordinate Lex from the shadows, who answers immediately, placing himself entirely at his lord's disposal. Lex, the family's top operative, steps forward before his master with a calm, commanding presence. Bruce explains that Lex is his sharpest blade, a peak specialist mage with a blue blessing who trained with Lenny and even took down a frost giant all by himself. Lex greets Kaya with a deep, steady voice, displaying the chilling composure typical of a seasoned professional. Kaya is intimidated by the operative's overwhelming presence, recognizing right away that he is on a whole different level compared to Lenny and has taken out many targets. While readying his hidden blades, Lex asked for the target's dossier, stating that even if his subordinate Lenny wasn't the brightest, he must avenge his fall. Kaya breaks into an eager smile, telling the operative that there is no problem at all, since he already has everything perfectly prepared. With a solid thud, a comprehensive dossier containing all the intel on the target is dropped onto the table. Bruce skims through the papers and lets out a sarcastic chuckle, asking if their rival's big trump card is really just Professor Gustav's assistant. The operative cautions that since the professor is highly influential and the kid is on guard, they won't be able to strike him inside the academy or out on the open street. Taking the advice, the clan head concludes that the only way to make a move is by luring the boy straight into their own territory. Kaya gets a clever idea, suggesting that the best way to bait him is by sending a formal invitation alongside House Ashblade. He plans to host an apology banquet to make amends, taking advantage of the rival patriarch's old age to ambush and take everyone down in one fell swoop. Kaya adds excitedly that this will help them settle all their problems at once, while his brother looks on thoughtfully. Bruce gets behind the plan, stating with resolve that if they are going to do this, they need to do it right and leave zero room for error. They plan to wipe out all their enemies in a single devastating strike to finally seize total control of the North. The story transitions to House Ashblade's lavish estate, gleaming under the soft daylight. Seeing her grandfather deeply focused on a document, Eleanor walks up curiously and asks what he is reading with such attention. Igna explains that Kaya sent an invitation letter wanting to apologize, offering 20% of their family businesses as compensation. Eleanor crosses her arms and says there is zero chance a hypocrite like him genuinely wants to make peace, making it obvious that a trap is waiting. The patriarch rests his hand on the desk, quietly reflecting on his granddaughter's sensible words. He agrees that the offer is just bait and instructs his granddaughter to go ask Grandmaster Rode for his take on the invite. Eleanor firmly agrees and hurries off to deliver the message to the young leader. Standing before Rode, the girl lays out the whole situation regarding the unusual invitation and the suspicious offer of 20% of their assets. The MC finds the sloppy attempt amusing, commenting that their enemies were remarkably clumsy and audacious to cook up such an obvious trick. But he doesn't mind at all, remarking that this will actually be great, as it gives him the perfect opportunity to erase House Shadowthorn from the map for good. The next day, the luxury carriage arrives to pick up the party of guests and take them toward the banquet venue. Guard Leon waves with a smile, letting the Grandmaster know that the Patriarch ordered him to come escort him personally. Rode calmly adjusts his formal attire and agrees that it is finally time to head to the banquet. On the way over, the elderly Igna admits he feels far more secure and confident knowing that Rode is accompanying them. He explains that their enemies don't even suspect he has been cured of his condition, promising to make them deeply regret setting this trap. The group finally pulls up to House Shadowthorn's imposing, gloomy estate, heavily guarded by masked sentries. Bruce welcomes them with hollow bows, pretending he had lost his temper recently and offering the banquet as a humble peace offering. As he bows deceitfully, Bruce thinks to himself with cruelty that he who laughs last truly laughs best. He knows full well that nobody is walking out of there alive once they are trapped inside the anti-magic field, combined with Lex's lethal assault. Bruce vindictively plots to crush the Ashblades, subjugate Eleanor, and tear Rode apart to feed the scraps to stray hounds. Rode easily picks up on his rival's true intentions, thinking with amusement whether the man is really in that much of a hurry to unleash his hostile aura. Everyone is escorted into a massive, luxurious dining hall where they are formally invited to take their seats. Bruce opens with a speech, offering a formal apology for the foolish mistakes his brother Kaya made, suggesting they let bygones be bygones. The host gestures politely, extending his arm and asking everyone to get comfortable in their chairs. Rode scans the surroundings with his power and spots 7 hidden nodes, creating an anti-magic formation so seamless that even Igna failed to notice. The young man senses his subordinate's quiet tension and calmly tells her to just relax. Placing full trust in her powerful leader, the girl takes a deep breath and nods in agreement. The heads of both great houses raise their glasses of red wine in a toast to celebrate this supposed fresh start toward peace. Keeping up business formalities, Igna takes the moment to bring up the transfer of the promised 20%. Bruce lets out an easygoing laugh, exclaiming that he almost forgot about the most important part of the deal. However, behind that friendly facade, his cold gaze and sadistic smirk signal the start of the planned takedown. He claps his hands twice loudly across the hall, delivering the agreed signal to spring the mystical ambush. A butler walks over carrying the property transfer contract on a silver tray, stating that all it needs is a signature. Suspecting nothing of the rush, the old patriarch reaches out his hand to take the official document and finalize the deal. But the exact millisecond his fingers touch the parchment, a vicious, slashing magic trap triggers across the room. The butler reveals himself to be a disguised operative, lunging at the patriarch with claws bared, yelling that this isn't a contract, but his final sentence. Facing the sudden lethal rush, old Igna remains entirely composed, without even setting down his glass of wine. A massive impact erupts with a deafening blast, sending debris flying across the entire dining table. The disguised operative stumbles back in shock, unable to grasp how his stealth attack got deflected so effortlessly. Igna rises calmly, surrounded by an overwhelming and magnificent golden magical aura flowing from his restored body. Seeing the aura, Bruce is horrified upon realizing the old man is at the peak of the specialist mage rank, questioning how he recovered from his severe illness. Igna bursts into laughter and mocks him, saying a grandmaster cured him and made him even stronger, adding that Bruce has finally shown his true colors. Bruce declares there is no turning back now, ordering Lex to join forces with him so they can strike and take down the intruders together. The fight kicks off frantically with the combatants darting at blinding speeds, trading rapid blows throughout the hall. Even while outnumbered, the seasoned patriarch flashes a confident grin before unleashing his technique. He dares his opponents to bring everything they have, promising to teach those arrogant punks an unforgettable lesson. Suddenly, the massive anti-magic formation hidden in the ceiling activates, radiating a deep, glowing purple hue. Feeling his magical energy suddenly locked away, the elder's eyes widen as he realizes he has walked right into an anti-magic barrier. He tries desperately to tap into his powers, but realizes with dread that he cannot channel a single drop of magic. Bruce mocks him, saying he spent a fortune on that barrier, and telling the old man to accept his end, since Clan Ashblade will now belong to him. Seeing her grandfather in extreme danger, Eleanor screams in panic toward him from across the hall. Even without magic, the old man dodges physical strikes masterfully, frustrating his opponent with his agility. Realizing the area is far too hazardous, Igna shouts for Eleanor to get out of there immediately along with Master Rode. With tears in her eyes and her hand firmly gripping her sword's hilt, Eleanor refuses to abandon her grandfather in this situation. She begs Rode to run and save himself, insisting that she will stay behind to fight and is ready to go down alongside her grandfather if needed. Rode walks forward calmly, steps past the girl, and authoritatively commands her to take a step back and stay out of the fight. Panicking, the young woman warns him that not even he will be able to cast spells due to the suppression, begging the boy once more to run. Ignoring the warnings, the MC keeps his icy blue eyes glowing coldly as he watches the dreaded operative Lex charge straight at him. Lex dashes in at high speed, ready to deliver the finishing blow, wondering if this kid was truly the one responsible for taking out Lenny. The operative flashes a sadistic grin, shouting that he will avenge his fallen partner by cutting the kid clean in half. A sharp metallic clang rings across the hall as Lex's lethal strike is stopped cold by an unseen force. Lex is completely rattled, unable to fathom how a mere novice-rank kid managed to halt his strike. Taking a closer look, he is terrified to spot the MC standing alongside his summon. Durand then proclaims that anyone who dares raise a weapon against his master deserves to perish. Right after, Durand unleashes an attack, and Lex realizes he won't be able to dodge, even as an elite operative. In the blink of an eye, the assassin is utterly defeated. The blow was so overwhelmingly powerful that the MC's summon hit an absolute home run with the side character. Rode is actually surprised to see that, even after taking a hit like that, the guy is still breathing. Lex is completely battered and realizes he'll need to burn his ultimate trump card right on the very first exchange. He breathes a sigh of relief, realizing he survived the crushing blow thanks to his blue blessing. Bruce watches the entire scene in utter disbelief, claiming that this should be impossible. He panics, demanding to know how Rode is still able to summon creatures under the effects of the anti-magic barrier. Rode scoffs at him, stating he would never use such a low-tier form of magic. He adds that the anti-magic circle they are so proud of has zero effect on him whatsoever. Suddenly, numerous purple chains of mystical energy begin hovering around Rode. He calmly reveals that the technique he uses is a forbidden magic that does not belong to this world. As Rode and his servant stand tall and imposing, the enemies look on with overwhelming dread. Kaya breaks into a cold sweat, unable to understand what forbidden magic even is, and asks if that beast was summoned by Rode. Lex rips his clothes off in pure rage, screaming that Rode is going down regardless, even if he bypassed the barrier. Bruce charges in at high speed, telling Lex to strike together and wrap this up. He gathers his energy into his fist, activating a destructive technique to crush his targets. Bruce is completely out for blood, ready to put an end to the MC, but his devastating punch is blocked with ease by the blade of bone crown. That punch was so weak it didn't deal a single scratch of damage. Bruce's eyes pop open in shock, seeing his full power strike stopped so effortlessly. Lex activates his shadow slip technique and lunges straight for the MC. Meanwhile, Eleanor watches everything frozen in place, admitting that Rode's terrifying aura leaves her completely unable to move. Lex screams in fury that he will avenge Lenny's fall, but Rode doesn't show a single shred of fear. He simply reaches out and grabs him by the throat. Our MC has unmatched presence. There's just no competing with him. Lex starts suffocating frantically as a massive dark silhouette looms behind him. Rode coldly explains that heroic spirits are nothing more than souls that refuse to move on. He begins squeezing the assassin's throat, promising to show him what the true end really feels like. Dark energy begins draining from the opponent's body as his strength rapidly slips away. Lex falls into total despair and begs not to lose his blessing, knowing he won't survive without it. He screams in agony and dread, pleading with Rode to spare his life. The operative still tries to threaten him, saying his master will come avenge him if he gets taken out. In his final moments, he screams in anguish, calling Rode a filthy monster. Kaya watches the scene frozen in horror, finding it hard to believe that Lex is actually gone. The elite operative's body now lies on the ground, completely drained and lifeless. Igna lets out a tear of pure astonishment, seeing the young master dismantle a specialist mage so easily. Desperate, Kaya crawls toward his brother, begging Bruce to save him from this mess. He clings to his brother's legs, weeping in terror and begging him to take down their foes. Disgusted by the cowardice, Bruce kicks his younger brother away, telling him to get lost for being completely useless. Rode and his servant simply watch the two squabble with complete indifference. Bruce quietly ponders how his top operative could fall so easily before that young man. He finally realizes that the roles of hunter and prey were flipped from the very beginning. Trying to save his own skin, he asks if Rode will let them walk away if he surrenders all of the family assets. Rode listens to the offer while keeping his expression totally stoic. He replies coldly that he will take all those assets anyway, as soon as he takes Bruce out. Kaya falls to his knees begging for mercy, blaming his own brother for the scheme to take out the MC. The coward then turns to Eleanor, asking if she can forgive him for everything that happened. She looks at Kaya with utter disgust, letting him know that her family now answers directly to Rode. Kaya is left completely speechless, realizing there is no way out for him anymore. In the blink of an eye, Bruce drives his claws mercilessly straight through the center of Kaya's chest. Kaya weeps crimson tears as he looks at his own brother in sheer shock, unable to comprehend the betrayal. Bruce violently yanks his hand back, leaving his younger brother to bleed out on the hall floor. Young Kaya drops lifeless onto the hall floor, under the watchful eyes of Rode and Eleanor. Bruce wipes the crimson from his arm with chilling indifference, remarking that his brother was truly a pathetic joke. Realizing Rode won't let him walk away alive either way, Bruce clutches the amulet on his chest. The crimson jewel pendant begins drinking up the fluid on the floor, blazing intensely with dark energy. A massive magic circle ignites across the ground with a thunderous roar as Bruce swears they will all go down together. With bloodshot eyes burning with rage, he screams that he is summoning his ancestors through his very own bloodline. A massive, violent burst of crimson energy rips through the area, tearing everything apart. Rode, Eleanor, and Igna try their best to shield themselves from that devastating shockwave. Bruce collapses to the ground, coughing up crimson, as the massive red mystic circle hovers above him. Watching the scene through his monocle, Patriarch Igna is thoroughly terrified by what he sees. Bruce's body begins undergoing a grotesque, terrifying mutation right in the middle of the hall. A massive beam of destructive red light shoots upward from the circle toward the ceiling with a blast. A monstrous creature emerges from the smoke, remarking with a sinister grin that the new vessel isn't half bad. Eleanor and Igna realize in horror that Bruce has just been possessed by the soul of his ancient ancestor. The ancient being lets out a wickedly dark laugh that echoes through the destroyed hall. He celebrates, saying that after 300 years, one of his descendants finally offered blood to summon his soul. The creature slams its weapon onto the ground, unleashing a terrifying wave of hostile mystical energy. Eleanor grips her trembling blade, saying that the sinister aura is so overwhelming she can barely hold her ground. Igna recognizes the dark magic, stating in outrage that this man is no longer Bruce, but a filthy abomination that belongs back in the grave. Rode pinches his nose and remarks dismissively that the stench of the departed makes him sick, ordering the monster to rest in peace. The ancestor stares at him with a sadistic grin, promising to offer Rode's blood as a tribute to his kin. He begins gathering a massive sphere of boiling blood magic in his hand. The creature decides to start by locking down Rode's servant to make the battle easier. With that, a pool of cursed crimson appears, beginning to bind the mighty bone crown. Taking advantage of the servant's distraction, the monster darts at high speed straight toward Rode. He launches a lethal strike at the MC, yelling mercilessly for him to perish. Rode stays calm and remarks that apparently the ancestor didn't inherit all of Bruce's memories. The monster pauses for a second, not understanding what the boy meant by that. Rode follows up by saying that if he knew how his assassin fell, he would never have the guts to challenge him. With a commanding stare, Rode simply orders the opponent to drop to his knees before him. In that exact instant, a crushing gravitational pressure bears down on the monster, smashing it into the floor. The ancestor hits the ground hard, coughing up a mouthful of crimson from the sheer spiritual force. He panics as he realizes his body won't respond, wondering why he feels so terrified of this kid. The monster looks up, trembling in fear, asking himself who on earth this gray-haired youth could possibly be. Rode tells him he'll find out shortly, activating his necromancy art known as Soul Flame. The MC gently taps the opponent's forehead with fingers surging with blue energy. The blue flame begins searing the ancestor, who screams in agony, unable to fathom why the fire burns his soul and mind. He writhes completely on the ground, screaming in pain as he feels his new vessel being consumed. The agonizing spirit desperately begs to know who this terrifying kid really is. Rode calmly declares that before him, all departed souls are merely gentle lambs being led to the slaughterhouse. The monster clutches his head in despair as he feels all control slipping away completely. He unleashes a deafening screech of pure agony as his spiritual essence begins tearing apart. The ancestor panics, realizing his very soul and existence are being wiped out forever. He laments in despair over having just returned to the world, crying out that he doesn't want to fade away. With a mystical pop, the ancestor's dark soul shatters and dissolves completely. A massive wave of bluish spiritual energy washes gently across the entire ruined hall. Rode absorbs all of that energy, remarking with satisfaction that the ancient soul truly made him even stronger. Silence finally settles back over the wrecked hall, leaving only Eleanor wondering if all of this is truly over. Patriarch Igna remarks in awe that he has seen many powerful figures, but never anyone capable of erasing an advanced mage's soul so effortlessly. Eleanor looks at Rode in complete admiration, realizing that while she was ready to go down fighting to protect him, he dismantled the enemy with a simple flick of his hand. Rode turns calmly and informs Lord Ashblade that House Shadowthorn is no more, leaving the rest of the loose ends for him to clean up. Igna bows respectfully, swearing to hand over all enemy assets to Rode while declaring that his family will now serve under his banner. The elder offers his deepest thanks, admitting that if it weren't for the young master, his entire family would have been wiped out today. Eleanor places her hand over her chest and solemnly pledges that she is ready to follow Rode wherever he goes from now on. Rode gives them a composed look and tells them to stand, saying their words of loyalty are more than enough. Next, the MC walks over and picks up the metal crest lying amid the stains on the floor. Touching the object, Rode senses lingering traces of that ancestral soul and hundreds of other Shadowthorn spirits bound within. The young man feels disgust, commenting on how twisted and repulsive it is to use the bloodline of one's own family as ritual fodder. Rode hands the relic over to Igna, asks him to handle the cleanup of the area, and mentions that he's feeling a bit drained. The patriarch gladly accepts right away, promising to carry out the order with absolute pleasure. Rode exits the hall with his head held high, walking calmly toward the exit under the evening glow. Igna watches the young man leave and tells Eleanor that the entire north is about to change, swearing to follow him no matter what lies ahead. Night soon settles over the peaceful, upscale manor where Rode is staying. Focused in his quarters, Rode notices he has grown significantly more powerful after fully absorbing that ancient soul, officially breaking into the novice mage rank. The MC reflects with satisfaction that he shouldn't be too far from advancing to the next tier of mystical power. He finds their crude method of extending life laughable, but wonders if this connects back to the headless knight in the forest. Meditating quietly, Rode decides he will deploy the blood mercenaries to investigate these mysteries now that the Shadowthorns are out of the picture. The young man concludes that all that's left is to wait patiently for intel, as the story jumps 3 days ahead in time. 3 days later, Eleanor visits Rode to let him know her grandfather organized an auction to sell off the seized Shadowthorn assets, inviting him along. Rode turns down the invitation directly, stating he prefers to let them handle all the event's arrangements. Shortly after, the young man heads to the academy laboratory, where he finds someone else at work. The eccentric Professor Gustav celebrates Rode's arrival and tells him he'll have to come along, since Margaret is away today. Rode is a bit puzzled and asks where they are going, to which the professor cheerfully replies that they are heading to an auction. Gustav whispers excitedly that he has no clue who the Shadowthorns pissed off to get taken down, but their treasures are being auctioned off. Rode puts on a deadpan, unamused look, since the person actually responsible for taking down their rivals is standing right in front of the professor. Gustav drags the boy along impatiently, telling him not to stall and reminding him that their rivals hoarded plenty of wealth and rare materials across the north. The scholar smiles with excitement, saying he is counting on his favorite assistant to help him spot the highest quality magical artifacts. The pair arrives at the grand venue where the prestigious Ashblade family's luxury auction is taking place. As he nears the entrance, Rode spots a very familiar figure stepping down from a carriage. Professor Ball shows up fuming, thinking he needs to restore his reputation at all costs in front of Gustav and that insolent kid. Rode is surprised to see that even Ball got an invite, figuring this auction will bring way more drama than he anticipated. Suddenly, Anna and Claire appear in the crowd, and the blonde arrogantly asks what a boy like Rode is even doing here. Anna looks down on him, claiming this event is reserved exclusively for high society and that he shouldn't act like he belongs here. Claire brushes off her friend, looking at Rode with fondness, and kindly asks if he'd like to join them to watch the auction. She warmly offers to buy any item he might want, but the MC politely declines with a thankful nod. Annoyed, Anna pulls her friend by the arm, telling her to forget about that nobody since the event is starting, and they need to head inside. Rode just watches the scene with a sweat drop, as both professors start squabbling the second they cross paths. Ball points a finger and arrogantly warns that he brought a fortune in gold coins to ensure they don't walk away with anything valuable. The bald man gloats that since this is an official Ashblade event, nobody will be able to trick him like they did at the magic market. Gustav just mocks him, reminding him that he bought a useless rock last time, but Rode assures him the bald guy's plan won't pan out. The old man turns his back on his rival, saying he doesn't need him meddling in his affairs, and tells Rode to head inside the hall. Inside the luxurious theater, Eleanor appears looking radiant in a stunning white dress and immediately spots Rode in the audience. She beams with a lovely smile and hurries over to him, mentioning she thought he wouldn't come and noting she set aside a special VIP seat for him. Rode signals for discretion, explaining that he prefers keeping a low profile, simply acting as Professor Gustav's assistant for today. The camera pans over various rare treasures, glowing gems, and mystical weapons displayed in glass cases before the entire audience. Gustav inspects the relics in awe, whispering to himself that their late rivals truly had impressive wealth tucked away. The master of ceremonies takes the main stage, welcomes the guests, and officially announces the start of the high-stakes treasure auction. The auctioneer introduces the first lot, an oceanic crystal perfect for setting up water magic circles, opening bids at 500 gold coins. The bids climb rapidly to 600 gold coins, while Ball flashes a wicked smile, eager to see when Gustav will make his move. Next up is a shadow cloak seized from the shadow thorns, capable of concealing the wearer's aura and preventing detection, starting at 800 coins. Gustav raises his paddle immediately, thinking that shadow cloak would come in handy for his field trips. Ball raises his paddle right after, outbidding him by offering 900 gold coins for the item. Professor Gustav refuses to back down, bumping the offer up to 950 gold coins. Determined to ruin his rival's plans, Ball outbids him, pushing the price to 1,000 gold coins. The bidding war heats up across the room, with numbers climbing rapidly until hitting 1,300 gold coins. Ball proudly raises his paddle, offering a whopping 1,500 gold coins for the relic. Gustav pulls out, grumbling in annoyance that the price has far exceeded the cloak's actual value, complaining that the vulture Ball is just acting out of spite. Rode calms the professor down smoothly, saying it's completely fine and that they can just let the bald guy take it. The auctioneer's gavel slams down, finalizing the sale to Ball for 1,500 coins, leaving the buyer looking smug as can be. The next item announced is a mysterious ancient bone fragment engraved with unknown runes, opening with bids at 500 coins. To everyone's surprise, Rode calmly raises his paddle, jumping straight in with a bid of 1,000 gold coins. The auctioneer recognizes the boy instantly and freezes, bewildered as to what he is doing there and why he is taking part in the bidding. The staff member discreetly hints that he could just hand the bone to Rode for free, but the young man declines, saying he is just an ordinary guest and asks to follow the rules. Anna yells in disbelief and frustration, asking if Rode has lost his mind and why the influential Ashblade family would ever offer him something for free. Claire and the other guests are left wondering why anyone would spend so much coin on a random bone that nobody knows how to use. Ball flashes a malicious grin upon seeing the boy's interest, thinking to himself that they won't get their hands on a single thing today. The bald man raises his paddle, taking the lead with a bid of 1,200 gold coins. Rode doesn't even flinch, instantly driving the bid up to 2,000 gold coins, leaving Professor Gustav in complete panic beside him. Gustav looks at his assistant in shock, questioning how he could drop 2,000 gold coins on a mystery bone. The scholar figures excitedly that it must be an ultra-rare material that even he failed to analyze, but Rode calmly clarifies that it's really just an ordinary bone. With a sly smirk, the MC explains that doesn't mean the item is useless, suggesting they trick Ball into burning through his fortune for nothing. Ball walks right into the trap, bidding 3,000 coins under the assumption that for the kid to pay that much, the bone must hold some incredible secret property. The auction guests start buzzing, wondering if they've gone crazy for driving the price of a mystery item up 6 times over. Rode lowers his paddle with a triumphant grin and mocks Ball, remarking that he must really have coin to burn to drop 3,000 gold on an ordinary bone. Ball goes totally pale with an utterly foolish look on his face, realizing he fell hard for the young man's bluff. The auctioneer's gavel strikes, formally congratulating Professor Ball on scoring the sought-after bone for a hefty 3,000 gold coins. Gustav roars with laughter, mocking his rival for learning nothing after blowing another 3,000 coins on junk at the last magic market. Fuming with rage, Ball clenches his fists so tightly his knuckles pop, cursing silently at the kid who played him once again. While Anna throws a fit over the kid running the price up, Claire thoughtfully notes that Ball is a respected scholar and Rode seems to make enemies everywhere. Gustav commends Rode's wits, while the young man calmly notes the rival won't be bothering them anymore, explaining that his good standing with Eleanor made things simple. The auctioneer pulls everyone's attention back, enthusiastically introducing the next lot of treasures. With Ball out of the running, Gustav secures his item of interest easily, with an opening bid of just 500 gold coins. Ball's assistant frantically warns him that they can't spend another dime, or the academy will penalize them, to which the professor snaps back that he already knows that. Lost in thought, the bald man realizes he will have to seriously consider the mysterious partnership offer he received from that individual recently. In the shadows of the Grand Theater hallway, a mysterious figure in a top hat keeps a close eye on the auction's proceedings. The top-hatted figure considers Ball a complete fool, but plans to channel the bald man's rage toward Rode so he can handle the kid for him. He reveals in his thoughts that moving counterfeit merchandise through this region's magic market is a major source of revenue for Clan Gorbei. Dreading harsh punishment and exile should his operations collapse on his watch, he resolves that he must take out the brat capable of spotting fakes. Relieved to see the Ashblades are unaware of his backroom deals with the Shadowthorns, he decides to play it cool and wrap up his objective once Road is dealt with. Before long, the auction wraps up and attendees begin heading out, chatting excitedly about their hauls from the day. Eleanor meets up with Road in the main lobby, while Professor Gustav watches the two of them with a warm smile. She explains that the auction brought in roughly 100,000 gold coins, offering to send the sum to his residence knowing he needs the funds. Road calmly agrees that she's right and asks her to go ahead with it, leaving Eleanor looking absolutely thrilled and happy. Down the hall, Ball's assistant asks if he wants to double-check the bone just to be safe, but the master snaps in a rage, telling him to shut his mouth. The top-hatted man continues watching Road and Eleanor walk casually together through the halls of the auction house. With his eyes glowing a sinister shade of purple, he whispers that the kid has nobody to blame but himself for digging his own grave. The mysterious man then firmly grips a strange purple talisman marked with a golden cross in his gloved hands. Moving through the exiting crowd, the man in the top hat approaches an associate, introducing himself under a shroud of secrecy. He reports that the target has been identified, directing them to push Ball into making a move, while the professor himself yells at his assistant to shut up. Suddenly, the sharp, swift sound of steel cutting through the air echoes within a dimly lit corridor. A shadowy figure emerges, holding a keen blade directly against Ball's neck. The man introduces himself as Shadow Serpent, the Northern Branch steward of the Shadow Veil Syndicate, stating that he needs a word with Ball. Ball is terrified upon recognizing the mysterious Northern Syndicate of operatives, wondering how he failed to sense the presence of such a powerful figure. Shadow Serpent tells him to take it easy, sheathes his blade, and assures him that he didn't come to end him, but rather to pitch a mutually beneficial partnership. The scholar grows suspicious, asking what an operative could possibly offer him, but the man asks for patience so he can hear the pitch before making up his mind. The carriage rolls along in silence under the bright glow of a full moon in the night sky. Meanwhile, the calm of the night settles over the luxurious residence where Road is currently staying. Inside his quarters, Road speaks through a communication device, asking Kite how their investigation is coming along. The subordinate reports that he has reached the designated location, but offers an apology, stating he didn't uncover anything of real value there. However, he shares that he discovered ultra-pure magic crystals, remarking that refining something of that grade would be nearly impossible in the resource-scarce North. Kite notes that this caliber of refined gem is the kind of treasure typically found only in the royal capital itself. Road is left deep in thought, wondering if Clan Gorby, the ones who took his sister in his past life, is behind all of this, and if their reach has already stretched this far.